We're live on Instagram, everyone. Hey, how's it going? Not yet on YouTube though, and not on the GarageBand.
We are live on YouTube.
Oh, you did hit live? Okay, we're live on YouTube then. My B.
All right. So now.
All right. Cool. So there will be like the official audio that comes out later. That's how I'm going to be like, hey, thanks for tuning in. But everyone who's checking us out live right now on YouTube and Instagram, hello, this is Sam Shahin, New Orleans drummer, and I'll introduce him officially in just a second when we're hitting the audio.
Ooh, the official.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's a show, like, this is like a live portion a week early. I'm still trying to figure out how to do everything, but yeah.
Man, it seems like there's no set method, and it's just kind of whatever feels right to you and whatever connects to the people you're trying to connect with.
That's true, and whatever works. Yeah, it's whatever. Also, whatever's like I am cool with doing. Like, like I'm not buying a $500 microphone for this or whatever.
And trying to make a lot of these things fit into your life.
Yeah.
Especially.
It takes work.
Yeah. With everything that any of us have going on at any given time.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot to take on an endeavor that doesn't have any financial component to it or anything. It's just like time you're spending. Yet is the operative word. We've been talking about reaching out to sponsors.
Oh, great.
Yeah, having like local people sponsor.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that because, maybe some people listening might be like, oh, I'd be happy to sponsor it. We'll talk about that.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah. James, how you feeling?
I'm ready.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it.
I'm going to grab a water for myself, actually.
Okay.
Actually, never mind. I forgot I have an emergency bottle over here.
That's smart.
So
I got one by my desk, too.
Let's do it.
All righty. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. I am pleased to welcome Sam Shahin.
What's happening, Steve? Thank you for having me.
Hi, buddy, to the podcast. Sam Shahin is a friend from many years ago and Loyola University, and he's a drummer that a lot of you in New Orleans definitely know, and those who aren't in New Orleans, he's a Naughty Professor, Space and Harmony, and I have a few other people down, and Justin Donovan, Cliff Hines, and you're a session musician, you
and
do all
freelance.
Exactly.
For the most part, hey, I love to play music. If you call me and I'm available, I'd love to do it in all likelihood. You know, there's a variety of factors, of course, that
obviously,
go into taking any gig.
You're a freelance musician,
but a lot of freelancing and just I love doing what I do down here in New Orleans, and it makes it there's a great community for it here, so it makes it a lot easier to do it here than perhaps other places.
For sure. Actually, that was one of the things I wanted to ask you. So I'd give a little bit more background to the people, and we are live on Instagram and YouTube. So hi, everyone. And the audio of this, of course, will come out on, Monday, April 17th. But everyone who's catching us live right now, and as always, you can follow my page, Stephen Y. Schwartz, on Instagram, or the Crooked Conversations podcast Instagram, or the Crooked Vines. We normally post those things there if you want to tune in the future live.
And I believe Naughty Professor will be sharing this as well from their page.
Awesome.
So you can catch it there.
Yeah. But so I know, so obviously you and I went to Loyola University together. Did you graduate in 12?
Yeah.
Okay, you were a year under me. So I graduated in 11. It's crazy that's like it's so bizarre the way the time passes, and to think like, oh wow, that was over a decade ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like you and I met in like 2008.
Yeah.
I graduated 9 years and 11 months ago, Steve.
Wow. Okay. Well, play catch up. All right. Well, you'll meet us here one day.
It's not like
I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that it wasn't 10 years ago for me,
per
sure.
se.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so back to my guest. All right, and so those listening, of course, is James Keene, the frequent co-host of the Crooked Conversations podcast. He's my bandmate and longtime friend. But Sam, yes, so we met, you were a freshman, I was a sophomore. Yeah, about 2008. Yeah.
At Loyola. I had moved down from D.C., and it's interesting. James and I actually off air were just talking about this a little bit. I can't believe that I've lived in New Orleans longer than anywhere else I've ever lived at this point. I was born in Texas, lived there for 12 years, and moved to D.C. For my mom's work for about 6 years before coming down to New Orleans for college for Loyola at 18. And I did do things traditionally, came straight out of high school and graduated in 4 years. So I am class of 2012 and 2008 for high school. Duke Ellington, Washington, D.C. hell yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah.
did?
Yeah, I did go to
Oh.
Duke Ellington, which is,
Yeah.
that's another really strong community that I'm
I'm
super
sure.
brings a lot of joy to my heart that I'm a part of that community. There's so many cats doing such amazing things across artistic fields.
That now
That-
I didn't know that, or I didn't make that connection in this present time, but you must have told me that once upon a time when we were hanging out at
Perhaps,
Loyola,
yeah.
and I didn't know what that was, but now because of Dave Chappelle and
Yeah.
and the special at Duke Ellington, and then the Mark Twain Awards, and they played there and everything. So now I have actually a much deeper understanding and appreciation
Right.
of that place.
Oh,
Really
it's amazing.
fascinating.
And they've completely redone it as well. It's an incredible facility, which it already was a truly special place when I was there. Don't get me wrong, but they did. I don't know the even multi-millions of dollars of renovations that they did, and I've been in there. Actually, I was there shortly before COVID when we were doing the 9:30 Club with Big Frida opening up for Tank of the Bangers on that run, and we had 2 days of the 9:30 Club, and I had a day off and went to Duke Ellington to go check out just the new facility. It is incredible. I mean, it is conservatory level.
Oh, I'm
honestly,
sure.
I mean, it's incredible, and the things that the students are able to do there. They're, I mean, we have NOCA here, which is another fantastic facility.
Yeah, with great,
and it's,
yeah.
oh my God, and the community there, and the teachers they have, the instructors, and the real life application that you get from a school like that is truly, it's an asset that you really cannot.
Sure, and no, I can, and I think that there's a comparable concept here. Is like what high school these art high schools are. They are old. They're conservatories. They're just in, like, things have evolved.
Absolutely.
High schools can be those now. That's what that is. People are choosing, or benefactors and families are making choices for their children to go there at an earlier age than they would have gone to conservatory
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Or in perhaps the recent past or American past. I mean, you hear of certain.
Well, of course,
certainly in Europe and throughout history.
Hundreds of years,
Yeah,
yes,
you would
of
have
course.
kids going and you're going to study.
I do mean.
whatever. It
I
may
was
be.
just
Yeah.
thinking that
No,
I
know what
did
you
mean
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did
of
mean
course.
American history, not European history, because they had, yes, of course.
No, of course, but you're right, and these types of schools seem to be in every, at least major city, if not. I don't know. I don't have any data on this, but a lot of school districts. I mean, you know about there's stuff in Austin, Dallas, and Houston. All the cities that I have some degree of intimacy with. They have a school like this. You know what I mean, or comparable to Duke Ellington or to NOCA or to LaGuardia or whatever you want to. So it really, it's a beautiful thing that growing minds can find a place in music around the country. I hope that continues. I also hope that extends to more of the professional realm, that we see subsidized government, NEA involvement, all types of different things to extend around the country, so that we don't just have a bunch of hyper talented young people who don't have the ability to make a viable living. Or
I understand. Yeah. So supporting the arts as opposed to cutting the programs. Yes.
Or just being consistent with how we support the arts,
like
because
financial
there
allocation and everything.
Absolutely. I think especially in the United States, we speak with subsidies more than anything else, and what and how we choose to subsidize things says a lot about what we value. We subsidize corn and wheat rather than apples and broccoli, for example.
Exactly.
Or
That
any
is a great
number of
point, yeah.
things. And I do think, of course, through the NEA and local grants as well. Of course, there are so many people doing incredible things to help out these artists, but there also could be a larger, I think, focus on how to subsidize directly from, say, a venue goes and gets a subsidy from a tourism tax in a local city. So if, whether it be the taxes that tourists have when they come down on an airport, or a hotel tax, taking a small percentage from that to go directly to venues as a subsidy to pay bands a guarantee, or things of that nature, that I do think make a lot of sense, and that we don't see happening. We do see happening for music education at a low level. We don't see it as much in as high of numbers. Believe me, I understand that there are people doing great work and doing a lot of this, and I'm definitely not trying to come for any of them, because
I understand where you're getting at.
But I do think many of those people would agree that it's difficult for them to be able to find the funding as local organizations.
You're talking about a collective actionable thought, right? We're talking like where does society focus their energy? Like we put a lot of tax money into, like you said, subsidizing corn and wheat for some strange to feed the animals that we slaughter, and then we also put a lot of money into defense contractors. So if we had maybe a better allocation of those resources, and we were conscientiously like making those choices, then I
precisely. And then there's not.
Then you don't need all these big, strong. Are
the
these
benefactors?
leaders?
What you called earlier.
Exactly.
You don't need
or they're helping. It's even flourishing further.
Or their resources are able to go elsewhere and solve other issues within society. Because ideally, I mean, this doesn't always happen. You never, but ideally, people in a position to be that type of benefactor, if they don't see a need in a certain area because it is cultivated, they will just turn their head and address a different issue of need in society. Ideally, a person who has that type of money and has that type of heart isn't just going to be like, well, I guess if I can't donate to that cause, I won't donate at all.
Sure.
And I think you nailed it when you said where we focus our attention, or words to that effect, as a society.
Yeah.
And it comes down to, even way back in Europe, that there's patrons of the arts.
That's exactly,
like that,
now we have like Patreon and these, well, not only, OnlyFans is a patronage thing, but it's sexualized in a way.
It did start. That started as it was supposed to be an artistic community for music specifically, if I remember correctly.
It might have been.
Vision.
I don't know. Yeah.
Of course, it's an artistic community. I'm not sure. I don't know the history of that, but
I don't know much about that.
It would be interesting to know. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I winked at the camera, but I actually I've never been on. I have no idea. We do have a Patreon though, and that is not sexual. That is Crooked Vines' Patreon is definitely above board, artistically driven, creative.
I'm sorry
endeavors.
to hear that. Yeah, for all those out there, sorry to tell you that there's no nudity on the Patreon.
Well, you can sign up and send us a DM.
Well, we'll see. Maybe
so
that can change.
You never know.
Yeah,
never know. Times are tough. So no, that is Jimbo Walsh, one of the professors at Loyola University.
Yeah.
I took composition lessons with him. We established a friendship, and I had Janice Saslaw, his wife, as a music theory teacher for a couple of semesters, and so I would go to their house, and I just remember him saying, he really thought that the musician economy was headed towards the benefactor patron model. He just saw the way that it was going with technology and the rising economic forces. He was like, this is more what it's probably going to be, is like we have this widening wealth gap, and essentially the wealthy are going to hire the musicians to perform for them.
I don't think he's wrong. I don't know that I have a
something along those lines, by the way. I am paraphrasing.
No, that's of course.
Yeah.
No,
This
those
is-
types
this
of
is- this is 12 years
conversations
ago.
happen over
Yeah.
a course of lessons, and I don't. I can understand that, and I think to a certain degree, the idea that people can create music and art as a whole, easier in their home studios than ever before,
Yes.
is great in the sense that it's done a lot to destigmatize where that money goes, in the sense that it's not only going to, I'm going to use this phrase again, but like hyper classical stuff or jazz concert series, all of which is great and should totally exist, but there shouldn't be some stigma to like, well, you don't get money because you're not really in the echelon we're trying to promote or whatever.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think there's something really cool about those things working in tandem, where there is access to a lot more music. So if we are moving in a direction, and I see Dr. Walsh's point there, that that it's open, and that it is more of a fluid, honestly, kind of, I hate using this phrase in this sense, but like in a free market sense, where it really is like, man, let's not just pigeonhole everyone and only give money to people who deserve it because they have attained this certain, status or technique or whatever it may be. Like, nah, if it's music, and it's here to be appreciated. And
absolutely. Well, we have an a la carte on-demand culture now with the way that we access content and how we can also create it. So people find their niches, and that's more of the culture. It's a world that we exist in. It plays into our separate realities, of course. That is a issue driving political separation, but and just I think agreeing about a lot of socio political economic factors. But at the same time, it also allows people to find things that they never would have found otherwise, or communities on, social media and Reddit and things where they can talk about art, or if they find the music that, how would they have ever found, like one band I really like is called Once and Future Band. It's a prog rock band out of California. Definitely a current thing. They sound like they're from the 70s, like late 70s prog rock, but with now production. But I never ever would have heard of them had not I seen a thing on a post from somebody else that there's no.
Yeah.
It's not like I heard them on the radio. They weren't on a television show. They weren't. There was no. They didn't go through a legacy avenue, right? That I would have digested in a different way. Now it's like, oh my goodness. Now I love this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can support them too. And I try.
Some of my favorite bands I've never seen live, or they haven't come to the city yet, or any number of things that would have been the traditional way, even when I was younger.
Oh yeah.
For me to find out about a band was, they're opening up for a band that I went to see, or they were played on a radio station, even a local radio station, and they may be a local band still, but and DC did have a great community for that, and a great
that's how I found out about. Well, I grew up outside of Philly, so that's how I found Dr. Dog. If listeners know who Dr. Dog is,
certainly do.
Way back in 2005 on XPN, one of the kind of alternative stations in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
So and just but they were a local, mostly local group, and so. That was a different time.
And that is also a huge part of having a station like we have in New Orleans, like WWOZ or WTUL as well,
I like
where
a lot,
they're not clear channel.
WHIV FM too.
Yeah,
that's
as well.
One.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. No. I mean, really, honestly, anywhere where DJs are able to choose what they play, and it's not chosen for them, I'm interested in what they're playing. You know, and that doesn't mean I'm going to like it or stay on the station long, but it means I'm interested in what they're playing. If you have curated something, let me hear it. You know, if it's clear channel, sure. Yeah.
Something I wanted to, well, real quick, I saw James. I know people are listening to this later. I saw you futzing with audio. Is everything coming okay through the Instagram stuff? And I saw you checking levels and everything. So I just want to make sure that everyone thinks cool. That you're okay. He's giving me the okay sign.
Everything's great.
Awesome, man.
I'm not texting people. I'm watching the Instagram live stream, making sure it's okay.
I just want to make sure the sound was coming through. We were checking. We have this for people listening. We got this iRig stream thing so that we could send the microphone audio to.
One day whenever I'm on maybe I'll be a guest on the podcast and we can talk about all the gear that I've hodgepodged together to make this work.
I think that's a great idea. I would love that. We talked about that before. Next time,
as long as I'm not the guy who has to try to make the audio work.
You guys switch seats right now. He'll play drums for a little bit.
Oh, man.
We all rotate. We all rotate one to the left.
Musical chairs.
It's podcast. It's podcasting. One chair to the left.
Me being an audio engineer and a trombone player is like nobody's. It's much closer to a nightmare than a dream.
Just give yourself a decade.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Wait, do you play any other instruments other than drums and maybe probably some keyboard, music theory type of stuff?
Yeah. I certainly. I play on a piano to write, to compose, and to kind of come up with parts and write some of the worst horn harmonies known to man, and then the naughty professor dudes rewrite them for me.
Yeah, sure. You can come up with the one melody line.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I can come up with a
and
melody
they'll harmonize
line,
it.
And then I recognize that those dudes are truly brilliant. You know, they're fantastic at doing.
Well,
what
you
they
all
do.
are. You all are. You all are. By the way.
But especially in this regard, I really mean that they have a beautiful way of splitting the harmony in. We're gonna throw an accent here by turning it into 3-part at this moment, or just for these notes, or some things that are really far beyond what I'm like. Okay, I'm gonna stack this in fourths, or you know what I mean, and just that's kind of more generally the sound I'm going for than anything else. So let me do that, and I'll give it to y'all, and you'll take it and run with it.
Sure.
And I'm really just very fortunate to have some guys who not only are brilliant in that regard, but who, honor the song and think about where you try to think about where you were at when you wrote it and what the approach was to kind of make it what it is. And that's a difficult thing.
Not change it, but enhance it.
Yeah. Change it, but only in service to the idea of the song, And we call it giving it the Naughty Professor treatment to a certain degree. All of us will, especially at this point, we usually bring in relatively finished songs that then go through a series of arrangement changes and changes in how the orchestration is presented, I guess I'd say, is the way to say that.
You need to make it the song needs to be the band's song
Exactly.
at some point. Like I saw that Noah Young has his own project, and I'm sure he's been a songwriter for Naughty Professor. So obviously, what he's doing separately with his Noah Young or what's it called?
It's just under his name.
He also had another thing. What was the other band? Slams. No.
Slugger.
Slugger.
Oh,
thank you.
of course. Yeah,
was
I
another-
believe that's him and Terrence.
Terrence. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Terrence
Okay.
Houston.
Terrence Houston. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and Sam
But yes,
Coughlin.
yes.
I know that the three of them are a big part of it. I just saw them at Tips relatively recently. They sounded great. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I thought you meant Noah's band.
But Noah does have. Yes,
Yeah.
Noah does have his own project. But my point is, I'm sure that sounds different.
Yeah.
Even though conceptually he may have written songs and they're still Noah Young songs that you can tell that a Naughty Professor song becomes a Naughty Professor
100%.
song.
100%. And I'm sure, I don't know this to be true, I don't think, but I'm sure there are some songs he's brought to Naughty that didn't end up making, all of us have songs that were brought, even demoed, and are just hanging out in a Dropbox folder that kind of just for whatever reason didn't exactly gel with Naughty. And I'm sure he has some tunes that he turned into his own band songs,
of course,
or
how could you
Slugger
not?
songs,
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
You didn't want those things to go to waste.
Absolutely. And Max Bronstein, of course, is also in that band. I knew there was a fourth member. When I just saw him at Tips, he was in a pocket. I was upstairs where I couldn't see him as well. And I also did think that Sam Coughlin, who it used to be Joe Johnson in the band, so who is relatively new to the band, was particularly killing it that night. So I think I remember even telling Noah, like, man, y'all really sound like there was something about the way Sam was gelling with everything tonight that it was really feeling nice, man. I thought so. So I'm Max, I love you. Sorry, man, that was not.
Well, Sam is killer, and he's playing with you. Sam Coughlin on keys. Yeah.
Crushlin, as we call him, because he crushes.
He does. Yeah.
Crushed by name, crushed by reputation. No, he's fantastic. Great voice. Great keyboard player.
That's right. He was taking over vocal duties after you guys released Identity, which had vocal tracks on it, and then you had to tour. And I think you had Dex playing with you
Dexter
for a bit.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Sexy Dex.
Yes.
Yeah, and all those gentlemen are also part of Raw Deal, which is another
Oh,
band
thank
in
you.
New
Yes, of
Orleans.
course.
right.
Some of these. Yes, I forget
That's
some of
right.
the titles of these
Yeah.
projects.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there's so much stuff going on here.
Oh my God! Yeah, and what happens in New Orleans, of course, is like there's super groups and that like Space and Harmony, which you're a part of, is kind of like Naughty meets Revivalists.
Exactly. I
You
think
know, and so all of a sudden it's like all these. You're like, wait a second, who's in which one? Which version of it? And it's like, Sam and Noah are in Naughty Professor, but they're also doing Noah's project, and is somebody not in? It's like, wait, which group is this?
And then Bill and I,
yeah.
It's Wild Bill Daniel, guitar
course.
player for Naughty Professor, and then the other two members of Space and Harmony are George Geekus, bass from the Revivalists, and Rob Ingram, saxophone from the Revivalists. And that's a really fun band to play with.
I'm sure.
And I think it's an opportunity. It's definitely between. It's instrumental, so closer to Naughty Professor than the Revivalists certainly, but an opportunity for those guys and the Revivalists to spread out, and it feels you can kind of feel in them that it's they get to write and act in a way that is just a little bit more of a soloistic focus than they get in the Revivalists necessarily. Although I think especially Rob does get. Everybody gets a chance to shine in the Revivalists, and they truly are a loving band that gives props to all of their musicians without a doubt.
Sure.
But there's some stuff like I was just talking about with Naughty, where you write something that doesn't get picked up, or you have an opportunity to do. George gets an opportunity to do something closer to Avishai Cohen and some of the, stuff where he's like, oh, I'm going to write this like crazy thing that has a 5 polyrhythm with all these
and Revivalists
harmonics all over it. And just, I think it's a lot of fun to be in that band, and everybody gets to both let their hair down and challenge themselves in a way that is really fun for all of us.
Sure. And it's just a different genre. I mean, Revivalist is like, indie rock is what's a good genre placement?
Alt rock, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the newest
alt
record,
folk-ish.
kind of. I mean, the newest stuff that I've heard from them is more like heavy and rocking
Yeah.
than some of the stuff.
But there's something, I don't want to say pop format, but they are, they have a vocalist. They're
Absolutely.
playing like arenas or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
they're
Yeah,
playing
definitely.
definitely. Yeah,
They're
I guess.
massive. Yeah,
they're massive. So there is a format for that. If somebody's just like, well, I have a crazy polyrhythmic in 5 songs, they're probably gonna be like, well,
maybe not for this
not
band.
for yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's not to say it's not good. It's just like,
Or we'll implement that idea in a different way. Or,
yeah. How can we? Yeah. So. I had a question to go back to something because I do
Please.
remember this. It had to do with the benefactor concept because, you and I were in the pep band together at Loyola. The
That's
revival of the pep band for the basketball team.
Basketball team, yeah.
Yeah, dude, that was so much fun, by the way.
Wolfpack.
Wolfpack basketball.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. Yeah.
It was the girls' basketball team. So they didn't have a pep, for people listening, they didn't have a pep band at Loyola for like 30 years or something because the football team there was a football team like in the 30s or something, and then they didn't have something. Then they had some sort of pep band for the various basketball or volleyballs or whatever, and then I think that just ended in the 70s. Or maybe the 80s, and we were like the first band. I remember Ashley Shabankara, and who's in Marina Orchestra, and she works with Preservation Hall. And this guy, Evan Wilson, probably a lot of people don't know him. I think he dropped out of Loyola after our freshman year together. But they restarted the pep band because they found that there was apparently a budget potentially allocated for it, and there was all this musical equipment. There were instruments set aside for it, and it was really crazy. Like Loyola just had a pep band thing.
I don't think I knew any of this.
Yeah. So because they were trying to start it my freshman year, you came the next year.
Yeah, because I was doing it with Adam Rosado.
Yes.
And yeah.
Adam took over because Evan dropped out of school and abandoned the whole thing, but it was already going and there was money allocated.
We were getting paid, which always kind of confused me because the athletes aren't getting paid.
Yeah.
Seems kind of analogous. Like, I'm on scholarship. You know what I mean? So even if they're on scholarship for athletics, but I digress. Please continue.
I mean, we were giving our time for something that
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we'd be there for 1, maybe 2 games in a row. We get Papa John's pizza or something too. And I remember that. But we were just dick around and have a lot of fun. I do remember that and just bullshit.
Oh, definitely.
And John Paul, the bass player, was
my God.
Dude, I love John. He's such a great guy.
He's a character.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
I love him too. He's fantastic. He's a character and a half.
Yeah, he is. I'll have to have him on. Maybe I kind of want to start doing some remote stuff if possible, just every once in a while. So he's in Nashville, I think. But
he is in Nashville still. Yeah.
But anyway, I remember you telling me a story, and I just recalled it the other day that you cleverly contacted people. You got a benefactor or sponsor or something to help you with your college financials, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because I remember it being such I didn't know one could do this.
Really?
Yes, when you explained it to me, if I remember things correctly. But please tell the
I mean, there were a couple things that worked through our high school that were legacy benefactor situation, essentially. But they were focused more as what like an individual private scholarship, and I did get a couple of those. There was one of those benefactors, or I mean, again, they were related to the high school I went to,
okay,
to Gullington.
And that explains things a little more. But
one of them ended up. I sent him a thank you note with a book about a Louis Armstrong book, and he sent me back a series of CDs, and we kind of gained a rapport with one another, and he did end up giving me a second scholarship directly for, because I was on scholarship through Loyola, but then I didn't get a full scholarship, so he was helping me out essentially with room and board.
Yeah.
And I also contacted, a variety of people who were just more that I knew. It could be, not all that I knew, but many of whom I had kind of come into contact with either through friends of my parents or close family friends, or just people who had shown through public records the ability and the interest in doing stuff like this. And I got a woman to pay for all my books throughout the entirety of got her. She was extremely generous, and is someone who is a family friend, and ended up, and it has been successful and has shown an interest in doing this for all types of people.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, it was just an avenue. It was an avenue to be able to not spend as much on college as we potentially.
Absolutely,
I didn't really have. Well, I'm the oldest of 5 cousins, and the way that we organized all of the college funds was more thought about with all of the cousins. And since I was the first one to go to school, I didn't want to take too much of the pie, so to speak, before the rest of everybody had to come.
Your family divvies things up amongst cousins?
In this case, yes.
Okay.
For a college foundation where everybody.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
DC, I didn't end up taking advantage of this, but DC does have. If you graduate from a DC public high school, you get in-state tuition to any state school in the country, because DC is not a state, and so therefore we have no state schools.
Yeah.
So, for example, my next 2 cousins live in Michigan and went to the University of Michigan, but I believe they both got completely full rides. So we were in a pretty good place at that point. But essentially, it came, more than anything else, it came down to understanding that I had a finite amount for college, and if I could get beneath it, it was in everybody's interests.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. Wait, do you have siblings?
No,
no
siblings.
So you're an only child, but you're close with cousins and family stuff. It seems.
We're very close on my dad's side. Yeah, especially. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Now the story. So what you just talked about is a different scenario than my brain had, but I guess the simplified
thing.
Well,
there may be other things that I don't remember.
Well, I think the way you probably explained it too was a little simpler. It's just like you had sent emails out to essentially wealthy people that you knew of, and it basically just out of 100, it just took one person to help you out.
Precisely.
But I remember
there was more than one though. There was one who was ongoing.
Yeah,
but that's exactly.
But still, I remember being like, wait, what? Because I got a scholarship through Loyola, and I feel bad because I know it is impersonal somewhat. Like the people just give to the college and it goes to somebody, and it's not like that person gave it to me specifically. But they did have those sponsor or those scholarship dinners, and I never went to that one because it always conflicted with something. I kind of wish I'd met that person or people who had actually given money to the school that then went to me, but I don't know.
No,
I that's something I do regret. I wish that I had done that.
That's exactly what I did. As I said, you can see a lot of public records of some of these CEOs and people who you're like, wow, this person is super generous.
That's what I remember. You
send them an email, and it did work. There were 2 people I didn't know at all who were like, yeah, I'll give you a few $1,000. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
when you said that opened my eyes, and it actually it affected me beyond, because I was like, I didn't understand that it changed my perspective on money, because it's like, as Evan Thibodeau, who was on the podcast once, it's called currency. It's a current. It needs to be spent, and you'd be surprised how it gets moved around. We don't have a great conception of money. I think it's still a kind of a newer thing in human society. Historically speaking, it's only so many thousands of years old. Like the way that we use it today.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And so I think this concept of wow, you can get money just from anywhere. It's not, it's just like it's out there somehow, and like that doesn't mean you can take it, but it might be there.
I think I was both younger and less. I don't know the phrase, but also just living in DC is very much, you kind of get used to the idea of no, money is just out there, and you need to make your case for how to allocate it.
Yeah.
And if your case is for yourself, that does not disqualify you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a shame culture that are based around that. Like, you shouldn't hand outs or be asking. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, more pride driven now. I was younger then and less pride driven.
Yeah.
Or something, but that doesn't feel right exactly. But I mean, dude.
Like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, asshole. You know what I mean? And it's like, sometimes it's fine. Like, to ask for grants. Like during the pandemic, I definitely was applying to musician grants because I was like, I fucking need some money. Well, I'll take it if you have it, and I'm a musician and I qualify. I have all these qualifications. I'm not less worthy than anyone else. I don't,
And it's a way of what we were talking about earlier, kind of evening out where we focus our financial attention as a society.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, dude, if you made all your money doing something that's not artistic even vaguely, but you're someone who appreciates the arts.
Yeah. There's a way to support.
Yeah, you went into something that is separate from something that you love and appreciate for financial reasons, and now you have, have the fortune to be able to give to something that is a passion and a love of yours,
that person
just kind of evens it out in a way that, yes, is more involves an extra step, and maybe if there were subsidies like we were talking about earlier, it wouldn't involve that step.
Sure.
But yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But these people that sponsored you, so to speak, or gave you scholarship, I mean, they are indirectly responsible for the music of Naughty Professor eventually down the pipeline.
Exactly.
Exactly. Your skill, who you met, and everything. So they helped in the creation. They are patrons in a way of these records that have come out.
Exactly.
So,
to a certain degree, absolutely.
Sure.
Or at the very least, made them possible. Set the platform for that.
Exactly.
To be even possible at all.
Down the stream of time. It's hard to say how you can affect people. So
absolutely.
It was just I just remembered that, and and Woody, our friend Woody Hill, he had asked me. I saw him the other day, and he was like, remember that when we do that thing about it? I was like, no, I'm gonna ask, dude. I'm gonna ask about it. I think it was.
It seemed so simple and so direct at the time. I also, you know what I mean? Like, I also remember being a freshman and emailing, like, every member of the Louisiana legislature in November and saying, hey, are you throwing holiday parties this season? Like, I have a jazz trio that can come play your holiday parties for, because I had a car when I would even, it might have been when I was a sophomore, actually, because I think I didn't get a car till I was a sophomore.
Okay.
Like, I'll just drive to Baton Rouge with, say, whoever it would be,
the trio,
Calvin on bass, and whoever would be my friends would be like, I'll happily play. And nobody took me up on it. I think I got like 2 no responses, and then a ton of just
But you have no idea. You don't know. All it takes is the one yes.
Exactly.
All it takes is the one yes.
Exactly.
There's also a stigma against cold calling or cold emailing, as though you're bothering people. And if you're I don't know, uncouth about it, sure. But if you can go into a situation and be like, hey, hi, how's it going? I'm emailing you because it's like booking. Like Kirk and Vine's on tour, it's just like we have to fucking cold email venues we've never heard, Yeah. And it's like, hi, we're on tour. We'd love to play at your venue. Here are the dates we're looking at. And it's like, it's just part of business. So if you extend that to the fact that you are a business, the freelance musician, the person who's trying to go to college and needs money.
I think the other thing that you can add to that is that, especially on the private institution, which is where the 3 of us all attended a private institution. I also attended a public institution.
Yeah, a little less
2
than
different ones.
A little less than 10 years ago, I heard.
A little less than 10 years ago.
Cool.
Something about understanding that, especially like I said, private institutions are also businesses. So the issue that I ran into is my first year at Loyola. The main reason that I was able to come was that I did get a full ride scholarship. But what they don't tell you is that every year they raise the cost of tuition and fees by 3% to compete with inflation, and they do not raise your scholarship money.
Correct. I also had a full, I'm using quotations, a full ride, and it only covered, it didn't cover my room and board. And
exactly.
And then things kept going up. So when I left college, I was like, wait, how much am I fucking? All right,
on the hook for.
Yeah, I was like, I did not realize that.
It's basically an additional for how Loyola's tuition worked out at that point. It was basically like every year there was about $3,000 that your cost of attendance went up, COA. And before I came here, I worked for a bursar office at another university that I was at. So it gave me some really good insight into how that all looked and worked. And I thought it was very unfortunate to, first and foremost, not be informed as a student, as a consumer of the thing that the university is selling. I feel like that's, pretty shisty a little bit. But also as someone who's looking at this pragmatically, like public universities there's laws that prevent that when you start, your tuition and fees are the same as when you finish. So
no
that was
shit.
So
I didn't know that.
That maybe state by state, but specifically in Illinois, I know for sure that you are locked in.
You're locked in.
There's
that
tuition
rate.
that's locked in. Once you start, they can't raise the price on you. But
that's
private.
That's great though, because I mean, I know John Mulaney's made the joke about children making the biggest financial decision of their lives and having no clue, going into these fucked up college systems that keep
absolutely.
And also kind of being gaslighted into doing it too by their parents and society.
Yeah,
and that's luckily we've started to move away from that methodology a little bit more, but and hopefully we continue to go towards that direction because we do need more plumbers and electricians that know what they're doing.
We do. We need tradesmen and
trade workers
people,
are like the most important thing that keeps this all going, and a lot of people are neglecting that as an option of where to go and how to be successful.
We don't need any more
financially
English
viable.
majors. We're good. We're good. We don't
So-
even need any more lawyers.
That is something that I would encourage anybody that's listening that's considering college or college for their children or looking forward to what that looks like. Is that's a very good thing to look at, considering the difference between public education and private education.
That's really useful, man. Actually, a question for both of you, but I'll pitch it to Sam first. So I did music education and jazz saxophone. Now, music education comes with a certificate and like in theory, I could have gotten a job right away in that field. Well, I kind of did, but and it's a thing that's as long as I renew my teaching again, I'm good.
Yeah.
But you were music performance, right, Sam?
Yep, that's right.
And James also.
I also did a performance degree.
So now, would you guys go? If you had to recommend it to yourselves again or to people younger, would you recommend a high-priced collegiate experience for music performance?
I don't think I would recommend college at all. Not to steal Sam's direct question,
Not
but
at
I
all.
think
Go ahead.
from the performance standpoint, college doesn't make much sense. It made sense for me because I'm not as great at networking organically. That was the one thing that I got from moving to New Orleans. And it was still even not as good as it could have been because I transferred here, and I would definitely say that being a transfer student is not as easy to make those connections and networks because you didn't grow up in the dorm room with the guys that are around you and whatnot. So
Sure.
it was harder to make some of those connections coming in as a junior. I actually had much more of a connection with the people that came in as freshmen whenever I was a junior, just because we were in the same, I'm air quoting, in the same class.
Yeah.
But no, as a performance person, I would say that if you have the tenacity to actually go out there and do it and network and meet the people and just do the thing, why pay money to just do a thing that you can just go do?
I basically agree, but Sam, I would love to hear your perspective.
I think there, like anything, there are pros and cons, of course. And circumstance has everything to do with it. What it is, how you want to approach your craft, how much a degree matters in your field. And I understand that you asked specifically about music performance. So in this field, I do think performance experience is invaluable. There's also a degree of networking in college that is important. James, you touched on that as well. I mean, Naughty Professor, we all met at Loyola, and it has been an extremely important part of my career and personal life, of course.
Yeah.
I also, depending on who you are as an individual, think that the academic side of the university, for me, the academic side was very valuable. I was in the honors program at Loyola. I loved John Sebastian. I loved a lot of the far more focused classes that you were able to get through that. Like, for example, I was not in I was like one of these kids who was they weren't sure if they were going to let me in or not to the honors program
okay.
when I first got there. So I was in non-honors classes to begin with, and then I basically had to go to John Sebastian and be like, man, just put me in the other classes. I'm going to do great. Just do it. And the class that I was taking was Religion Before 1650. It's a very broad topic. It's a very difficult thing to try.
There's a lot of years before that.
And I remember I ended up transferring to a class that was specifically about a mystic form of Islam called Sufism and the musical traditions and how they relate to the religion, and there are whirling dervishes and all types of different things that come into play with the spiritual tradition and how music and religion can combine those things in mystic Islam, so to speak. It's a far more focused class. I feel a lot more comfortable gaining knowledge in a subject that I can really feel I have an intimate grasp on some of those concepts in a sense where so I will say that some of this is impacted by my specific academic experience, but that being said, there were ways that the academic experience informed my humanity in a way that very much was able to help me translate into my musical voice and
Wait, how so?
Well, I mean, so I'm going to back up a little bit here.
Sure.
Throughout my life, I've been fascinated on kind of the stories that weave humanity together, and a lot of times I will try to play somebody so I play a Bourbon Street gig. I've been doing this not the Bourbon Street gig. I've been doing this concept for years that I'm about to explain. I was
Sure.
just doing it on my Bourbon Street gig yesterday.
Okay.
A lot of times you just see a moment in a person's life as they walk by, or some interaction between two people, or what it may be. A lot of times I will create a narrative of what that person did to get to that moment in their life and try to play that narrative. And that is something that when you have the more experience you get and the more well-rounded of an approach you can take to our global human identity,
Sure.
the more you can express about your own humanity and the more you can get that out in a musical context.
So you're talking like an empathetic, like I don't know, self-realization. I just
Precisely.
jiggled the microphone. Connection with the, so in a hypothetical, somebody's walking by the Bourbon gig, and you're saying that you potentially created like a story for them, or some sort of like
Exactly.
narrative or history,
Exactly.
and then you're. And then in that so you're while you're playing and
Yeah.
focusing on the music, somebody walks by. Let's say
Well, I know those tunes really well. I
Yeah,
will
of
say that.
course.
You know, I've been playing the gig a long time.
obviously, but
There's
there's
the
a
type of thing that happens when you're extremely comfortable, not on every gig, of course.
well,
but sorry,
obviously
go on. Yeah,
you're in
yeah.
you're in the flow, state of flow.
Exactly,
So you're not. I
exactly.
mean, obviously you're not like, wait, what measure are we on, or some shit like that. No,
Right.
no, I understand.
Right.
You're in the song that you've played a bunch of times, but in this, and then you see somebody walk by and they're like in, I don't know, like cargo shorts and maybe like a Hawaiian shirt, and you're like, oh, I bet they're a tourist. I wonder where they're from. Maybe they're from Minneapolis or some shit like that, and then you kind of create like a narrative for them,
Yeah.
and then try to project that into the musical.
Yeah, and I
style?
actually started by doing it where I would physically play rhythms that were the story itself. I am from Minneapolis. Da, ga, ta, ga, ba, ba, da, ba, whatever it may be.
So cool.
And then, no, for real. And
Yeah.
it's kind of evolved. Like, I started doing that probably in high school. I think it actually really started with the idea of I was just trying to play drummers' names, the syllables of their names, in a phrase that would be similar to the way they would play. You know what I mean? Like, so if it's
Oh.
here, I can just show you real quick. a
Yeah,
little
we
bit
have
what
the
I'm
drum
talking
set,
about.
so
Yeah,
we're
we
gonna.
do
I
have a
think
drum
yeah,
set,
let's
right?
do it. Let's do this. We're gonna see if this works. Yeah, we can turn. Yeah.
So like, I mean, you're nice. You got it's nice and muffled here too, so that's I don't have to worry about hitting too hard.
That should be on the front or side, left side,
Cool. I see it. Yeah.
or right side. I'm turned around.
So yeah. So starting off with something like really simple, like John Bonham. You know what I mean? 3-syllable name. And
John
I'm gonna
Bonham,
do
by the
it-
way. I'm making sure everyone can hear it because I'm not entirely sure how much is getting picked up on microphone. So he's talking about something simple. John Bonham. Go ahead.
And so with taking just his name syllabically and playing within his style would sound potentially, just coming off the top of my head at this moment, something like this. John Bonham, John Bonham,
John Bonham. John Bonham.
John Bonham,
And that's basically when the levee breaks is what you're kind of playing.
John Bonham, John Bonham. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Then
okay.
You just kind of build around that phrase. Again, this is where this all started as a concept for
Yeah.
me. Probably like 15 or 16 playing
Wow.
jazz and trying to come up with kind of soloistic phrases. So I'll do Philly Joe Jones, you know.
Philly Joe Jones, by the
Philly
way.
Joe
That's what
Jones,
he's saying.
great,
Okay.
great jazz drummer, and in playing in his style, something like Philly Joe Jones, Philly Joe Jones.
Philly Joe Jones. Philly Joe Jones. Philly Joe Jones.
You know, something like that.
Wow.
Building on the whole phrase.
Yeah.
As a rhythmic idea. And then that kind of leads to any number of things. Now, admittedly, a lot of times it's easier in a soloistic format to do something like this, but even so you come up with, I don't know, like say I see a guy walking on Bourbon Street and I'm playing like a funk beat, and let's say, well, I'm just gonna make this up. I'm gonna say, let's pick a name for the guy. I gotta envision someone in my head. Let's go with Joe Lewis from Minneapolis.
Joe
That's what
Lewis
I'm
from
gonna do.
Minneapolis. Joe Lewis from
And
Minneapolis.
We're gonna say that we're just gonna use that for now. A lot of times I'll come up with larger stories.
Gotcha.
For this, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Joe Lewis from Minneapolis.
So like I'm playing a little funk groove on a Bourbon Street gig. You're playing like. Joe Lewis from Minneapolis. You know.
Oh. Minneapolis. Joe Lewis from Minneapolis.
I kind of yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like, you know,
I totally understand.
It
It sparks the creativity and gives you
Exactly.
kind of parameters to exist in that also are empathetic, humanizing.
And here, I'll come back over there at this point.
Sam's coming back. I hope all that got caught on the audio. By the way, we're messing.
I think I was playing loud enough.
Well, no, I meant your voice. I'm sure your drums came through. I meant your speech.
It's all in there. Cool. And sometimes it's far less technical than that. That's where it started. But a lot of times you see. I mean, sometimes, to be completely honest, man, you see a moment that is incredibly emotional, either between
yeah.
two people or something happens. It could be incredible joy. It could be these, people who clearly love each other who are struggling right now to share that love, or any number of things. And sometimes you see something that is so powerfully emotional that it's more like you try to play an emotion, if that makes any sense. And or you try to play that experience as an emotional lens, which I personally do by trying to a lot of times remember whatever emotion that sparked in me. Remember a time that I felt the most that way that I can relate to, conjure that memory and try to play that memory within my own head. So if I see two people in like a thrilling, like they're walking down Bourbon Street having the best night of their lives, they're like, wow, this is such a thrill, this is incredible. I think of going on this roller coaster we used to go to at the Six Flags in San Antonio, the Rattler. You know what I mean? Just like the most thrilling thing in my life at that age. I'm like 8 years old.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this is the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I try to play that literal memory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's almost an exercise in empathy as well,
Yeah,
really. It's like
exactly.
experiencing, and that's like a really big thing I think a lot of people, especially at the higher level in music, really like to discuss in what they're trying to express. Because a lot of people talk about expressing happiness or sadness or what, and that's like that's due to the words that a lot of us associated with the things we learned in elementary music, like major, minor, happy, sad, et cetera, et cetera. But really, it's more it's experiencing and communicating more nuanced emotion, and I think that's a very interesting way that you're accomplishing that at the drums.
It's an amazing way to convert the thing into the expression, because I always tell students that I teach and people in general, music is a language. And as you progress through it through your life, both in the like notation reading of it, plus in the theory, as well as the performance of it, that's one speaking, the other's writing, in a way, to an analogy.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So that's just a really interesting way of presenting that situation, as opposed to like focusing just on simple execution, or also just like what's in, like, I know that you are empathetically making it about what's inside of you, but at the same time, it's not just like, I'm angry today, or like, because sometimes that happens with a lot of musicians, for people who don't know, but like, you put it all out on stage. Sometimes like you're frustrated about something, so you just go for stuff because you're just frustrated about something that happened in your life. But that's so interesting to then like create the that's really cool.
I really think that music, obviously, about self-expression. It's about expressing your humanity, and it's a way to connect all of that, because I really strongly believe that we are in a global human identity, and therefore obviously, no matter how small or how large, everything that we do affects everyone else.
Sure.
So there is
I completely agree.
And so there is a degree of just like, I just trying to inform your own humanity as much as possible, so that then you can express that voice, is kind of where it comes from. But it's also about keeping your ears and your mind open while you're playing, because then all of a sudden any other little thing that a musician is doing, like maybe this guitar player, even though it's not in the part, he keeps throwing an accent on the and a two every 4 measures or whatever it is. And like, man, I've heard you do that enough times, I'm going to go ahead and catch that every other time you do it from here on out, or whatever it may be, or like just
that
kind
synchronicity
of a focus
between
on everything that's going on. And it helps me certainly to keep my ears open and stay engaged, which can be, especially on long gigs, that can be a challenge to do both of those simultaneously.
Certainly, yeah. It took me and it took me time to be able to listen better to other people, but just to, to be kind of crude. So what you're talking about, it's just so funny that you're this like kind empathetic thing, because the only like thing I can relate it to is like some hot girl walks in the club, I'm just like, I want to fuck you, and so and then I channel that into my. So that's a crude way, just a very revealing thing about me. But I never think about just like, oh, I wonder if they're, what type of day this person.
Or just, and I mean, you can create it for yourself. It could be completely wrong.
Of course, but you never know. Of course, you have no idea. But I want to try that, because it did take me a long time to really like, not a long time, but it took me time to like listen, like really listen to other people and understand what they did, how they do it. It's something. Luckily, the Crooked Vines with Dane Schindler on drums and Jonathan Stallman on bass, myself on keys, and I mean obviously James and Lindsay, and when Lori plays with us, or Phil on sax, but specifically the rhythm section, like working together in a way that's like subconscious thinking and like catching things. Like Dane and I, like, and John, we all like catch, like, if somebody does like an upbeat or a triplet thing and they do it like pretty soon after again, we know it's gonna, like we just do
part of a phrase.
Yeah,
yeah,
and we'll catch it, and then all of a sudden we have our own little languages, or we know that sometimes I'll and it's like a little thing one of us might do regularly every couple gigs or something. So if we know that, we go do it.
Exactly, or even just knowing the playing style of someone is like, this cat has a certain, I'm about to end my solo lick that is not, maybe he certainly doesn't do it every time, but I know that lick, so if I hear the first half of it, I'll go ahead and catch the second half with him, because I know where it's going, like. Yeah,
I know Alan Zavad, the keyboard player, used to have like a volcano finish, they called it, when he was with Zappa for a bit, and like his solos would always end with its
wall of noise.
Yeah, wall of noise, and then after a while, everyone like kind of knew, so that's how they would join in at the end.
So the drummer maybe swells.
Yeah, and hits everything. Yeah. Dan, that's a really cool thing. So when you talk about these spiritual connections, because I've talked about it on this podcast before, that I see myself more as like a Gaiaist almost. And I think there's like the concept of like Kabbalism, mysticism. I don't know. It's certainly not like monotheistic by any means, or at least a general, like, let's say like Judaism, Christianity, Islam. So do you find yourself in this, like, that? I mean, because that's like a spiritual, not that it's specifically spiritual, because it's very practical, almost pragmatic,
like
human to be all connected. When you say that, is there a spiritual component for you as well, or is it just like kind of a viewpoint?
I suppose yes. It would be impossible to say no, certainly,
sure.
But it is also, I gotta say, it comes from very like practical everything. You know what I mean? Is I just, in order for me to be the person that best represents what I feel, I just need more humanity as a whole. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, in its own right, self-serving, and yes, spiritual. Yeah, it would have to be, but I'd certainly not religious in any way. I don't ascribe to a specific religion. I don't know what's out there, and that to me is part of the point, is that whatever is out there is so far above my level of comprehension that I wouldn't even be able to recognize what it is or how it's functioning or anything about it to begin with. It's so far above what I'm able to even comprehend that I certainly would not say it's irrelevant at all. And people who find solace in a certain religion, that's a beautiful thing. People who find violence in it, that's quite a different thing.
Yeah.
But to me, I just don't feel a draw in any direct place more than another. And and again, it's just something that to me is so far beyond my level of comprehension that it feels not relevant to my life specifically, I guess, is how I'll phrase that.
I very much understand. I do think anyone who says they know for sure is full of shit. And I
don't see how you could.
Exactly. I guess that's my point. I get confused when someone's like, this is what happened, this is how it is. And it's like, whoa, we don't know. You don't know. And even if it's historical, like, it's like, it becomes like talking about prophets such as like Jesus or Muhammad. It starts to become like, okay, yeah, there's evidence about some things, but not others. Like, we have no idea what happened 2,000, 1,500 years, whatever years ago. Like, we don't know exactly what happened, so it's hard to say.
Not.
Like, so the benefits of religion can be like a set of values that you have, and community and your sense of like, well, certainly with the advent of Christianity, the idea of like we are all us, not the dissolution of them, the otherness.
Like kind of 1 + 1 = 1
Yeah.
situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to like the concept of us and them that was typical in the ancient world was
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
our tribe, we are like, that's how they were able to slaughter other people, is because humans, you know, they didn't even sometimes see other people as human, other religion, other organizations, other tribes. They were others in a way. So I think that if we can separate the good values, or what we call good, obviously it's also subjective too, which is, but we have a feeling, I think, of right or wrong that we like to follow, right? So empathy and humanity and like caring
Certain
about
extremely
others.
basic things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I thought James had. So yeah, that, I mean, it is certainly something that and part of that has been through like just reading and meditation, things like that. Others been through drug use and, you know, just finding these things. I don't know if you have similar experiences, that enlightenment through certain aspects, or if things were ingrained in you as a child, you felt this way.
Oh, certainly not. No, I wasn't raised religious at all. I think both of my parents were. I was not baptized as a child and given the option to baptize myself if I became like, my parents did not ignore religion, and certainly made it clear that they were not, you know, anything that you choose to believe and want to do is okay with us.
Oh, that's
but
nice.
They left the decision to me.
That's amazing. That's an amazing fostering situation.
And they've taken me to multiple different places of worship, I will say. You know, like and one of the reasons that I got particularly interested and did end up taking the Sufism class in college was because the International House of Sufism was in DC, near where I went to high school, and someone who became a good friend of mine, was her father ran the whole thing, and there would be these. I mean, that was more a thing that I connected with the spirituality of it and the musical aspect of it, and things that were not that were tertiarily related to the religion, or the religious aspect. So I've never walked into a house of worship of any sort and been struck over the head of like, this is me, this is my identity, this is but I certainly believe in the beauty of every religion teaches some degree of collective identity, of moving forward as a species, and of values that seem to align to me. Again, it's all subjective, but values that seem to align to me as basic human values. And so for that reason, I do. I mean, things are very, very. It's very beautiful to see how people can react to religion. I've never had that, but no, I certainly was raised in a way that could be anything, you know. I
love that. That's a great way, because I did Roman Catholicism growing up, and it wasn't hit over the head. My dad wasn't into it. It was something my mom had done, like Catholic school growing up, and she's like, "Well, I feel that we should go to Easter or church on Easter Sunday and Christmas, and like you got to do CCD," and we're just like, "That's bullshit."
What is CCD?
It's like the class that you take every like Wednesday. It's basically Sunday school, but during the week for kids in the suburbs.
Confirmation, I believe, is what that leads to. Correct. The end of the class is you get confirmed.
You do communion actually earlier. We did it like 6 years. You did like 1st through 6th grade, which is and you do confirmation. That was 2nd grade for me. I'm sorry, communion was 2nd grade for me, and then confirmation was 6th grade. Yeah. So baptism happens, you know, early on after birth, and then but there's other Christian religions that do it like all right in a row, bang bang bang. I forget which one that is, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I do know that
they do it like pretty, or they wait till you, like, I don't know. They get the baptism out of the way because they don't want you to die and not go to heaven.
You got it.
Yeah.
So that's the Catholicism side of Christianity, is the one that baptizes as a baby, because that's the only way that you can get in.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't even.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the Lutheranism side of Christianity, which it contains, you know, Protestant religions, Baptist and Lutheran and so on and so forth. Those are, you have to be able to choose and make that decision yourself and accept in your own heart that whatever piece of the religion Jesus Christ or whatever.
Mhm.
You have to be able to consciously make that decision yourself. That's one of the big differences between the Catholic side of Christianity and the Protestant or Lutheranism side of Christianity.
Yeah. They had like fucking wars over that. They
they
slaughtered each other.
They literally, I mean, that's the foundation of why the United States was born. Really, is that people wanted to practice Lutheranism and all the sects of Lutheranism, and the Catholic Church was like, nah, we're good on that.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, so that that's Roman Catholicism was what I had grown up, and it was pretty prevalent in my area. And then but the whole time I was always just like, I mean, just the inconsistencies and the, I don't know, the conundrums, the logistical hoops you have to jump through, which becomes like I said before, if somebody was just like, actually, I don't know, or we don't know, but here's like we believe these are good things, that's all baked in there. But there's also this element of just like, no, this is the truth. And you're just like, ugh.
And I do
Makes you
think
feel weird.
I can think of quite a few people off the top of my head who treat religion as a morality guide and not as a strict, rigid. I'm sorry, but almost like cult-ish.
Oh, it is. It is a cult
reaction to, but
when a cult does well, it becomes a religion.
I certainly know people who don't treat it that way, and
absolutely
treat
it as
people more of a community aspect of things, and it doesn't feel weird at all. But there are a few people who pop in my head as well who who go too far with it, and who. But they just like, man, why would you?
But they need that. They're uncomfortable with the lack. I think a lot of people sometimes are uncomfortable with the lack of an answer. Like that, the existential threat, or existential like uncertainty of just like they become so. It's like I had a girlfriend who didn't like to look up at the stars. I love looking up at the stars. I go outside every night before I go to bed, just look up at the sky. Even though New Orleans is just it's a city sky, But you can see some stuff right now. We can see Gemini and Leo are both pretty distinct in the sky, and we have okay skies here. But anyway, I just remember being like, why? We were out like camping or something, and I don't know, I was like looking, she's like, I forget exactly why, but I was like, well, why don't you? She's like, well, it makes me feel small. I was like,
yeah, I can understand that.
And I was like, well, that's kind of the point. That's wonderful. I love that like, I get to like on my high horse, and then all of a sudden I look up, I'm just like, yeah, my shit doesn't, I don't know, whatever that was bothering me earlier, like, doesn't fucking matter. Like,
yeah,
like
and everything is within a scope of us being small anyway.
Yeah, but I just remember it really that concept really bothered her. I was like, okay, well, that's I mean, we don't date anymore.
Running into, like, I feel like we're running. I'm getting, taking this a little different direction.
Sure.
But man, it's very cool. It's very fascinating. But all the advancements we're getting from, say, the James Webb Telescope and related stuff. Mm-hmm. There's an element of that terrifies me as well. That is very much like, are you sure we want to find the answers to certain things? Like, part of life is not knowing the answer and coming up with it yourself. And there is, coming from that people needing to know an answer aspect that you were saying. And I do,
ignorance is bliss sometimes,
to a certain degree. And I don't, there's also something about not knowing that makes life magical. And allows you to interpret it the way you want. Not to mention that if we do find conclusive evidence of the meaning of life or what the universe is or whatever, and I use air quotes for conclusive evidence, it would, at the end of the day, more likely than not, be subjective. It would be findings of it would be an interpretation of something. Again, I think whatever's out there is more than we can comprehend, so it would have to be a description of something from someone else that is like relatively subjective anyway. And
of course,
well, what if I don't agree with your interpretation of the universe?
Sure.
Even though it is backed by, and it's probably right or whatever, it could open, or God forbid that the universe is fucking sentient or something.
Yeah,
exactly. What I mean? Or
it completely strips us of our purposes that we perceive. We fill our days with I mean, that's part of the hierarchy of needs is that we need a sense of purpose and reason for existing. So we that's why we have jobs and passions and hobbies and these things and families, and we create these senses. Otherwise, you're just like a depressed blob on a couch because you have no sense of purpose.
Hey
like,
man, I'm that way a solid like once a week, so let's not knock being a depressed blob on the couch too much, man.
I mean,
no.
Collapse into a
It's definitely
beanbag
not
chair.
clinically depressed. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, guys. I should definitely clarify there. And, yeah.
No, you're just tired because you work a lot.
Just you need.
You're a
you
hardworking
need a while
motherfucker,
to
right?
Be like, man,
You just want to
is
sit
all
there.
this fucking worth it? And
Yeah.
just, like. Just relax for a while. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. But yeah, could you imagine if we all found out that we were really like some sort of feed pods for some, some like Cthulhu after death, and we're just like, what the fuck? And it's like, what's our, your mind would explode. You'd have,
Absolutely.
That's why we bury our dead, because they live underground, and they just come up from the bottom and take you to the core of the earth. That's where the monster lives. Yeah, that's how it works.
And
that's why they bury.
Agartha.
And
That's it. Agartha. Is that the name of the?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know.
The underground world.
Ooh.
Not not like Hades, but like an actual hollow Earth. That's a conspiracy theory. It's like it's called Agartha, I think. Is what it's called.
I don't know that.
The mole people, man.
It's part of it, yeah. Or the inner sun. You guys know about that?
Is that
They think there's a sun. Some people.
the core of the Earth is a sun?
Is a sun.
Sun, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
And the Mole People City, I've heard that one too.
Hey, I don't know shit about fuck. All
That's
right,
what I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't know shit.
Certainly, and I'm like, this is not my field of
Not
expertise.
your field, yeah.
We were talking about my fiance and I. That is, we're talking about how hilarious it would be to have a show where you have two experts in completely different fields, and you have them explain a concept in their own field and be like, look, this is actually how difficult it is to understand this stuff.
Sure.
This dude is. Whatever it may be, a medical expert who's being explained how to play advanced polyrhythms or something like that.
Yeah.
Or the concept of them, and then try to actualize them. It's like, no, there's no way you're going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now he's going to try to teach me how to, I don't even know what, because I don't know what somebody who's
Sure.
a medical expert would teach me, because I don't even have a concept of that to a degree,
Now, the two people in this hyphypothetical are probably pretty smart
Exactly.
individuals.
Well, that's
so they'll grasp. Well, I see what you're.
to be an
I see your
expert
point.
at all, you're someone who, has shows an interest enough.
You
to
spend
be able
years,
to,
many years of your life, in a
so
lifetime.
you're probably somebody who could grasp a concept pretty quickly. Whether you could do it, would be,
or even fully understand.
Even fully understand. Exactly. Like,
I mean,
precisely.
right. That point actually brings me back to something else. So you were talking about the honors program in college, and I just remember at Loyola, people I knew were in it, and they talked. It was just like hard. It was this difficult course load, and I always was like, why? If you're not going to go on to become a doctor, it doesn't look good. It's not necessarily for a resume purpose or your whatever the thing at the end of your list. Is it a resume? What do we call that? Your list of accolades and in college.
A resume, I think, right?
There's some
Whatever.
like curriculum vitae or something
Yeah,
like that.
something like
There's
that,
some
yeah.
Latin term. I don't know
Like a
if that's
corpus,
the right one. But
VC,
there's some
CV,
Latin term for it
Okay.
that I think,
Yeah.
but go on.
Corpus, it's CV.
I don't know
CV,
what it
CV
is.
is anyway. But so why did you do it? If you're like, I'm
Oh.
going into music, and yet I want to take these hard ass classes, I could just take the normal ones.
I mean, the extremely short answer is that it was more fun.
Because of the challenge.
That's it's funny you phrase it that way. Where I was at with my grades in my first semester before I switched to the honors program were noticeably lower than I ever got throughout any of the rest of college. So I did better in the honors classes than I was doing in the regular classes. More, I think, because I just, just to use that one example that I used earlier, I'm like, dude, religion before 1650 in a semester, that's a non-starter. That's going to be so difficult for me to pay attention, because, what are you even... Religion before 1650.
Sure.
I think there was an aspect of my not give a fuck switch kind of got turned on.
Yeah.
So I think by nature of having something that was, I don't know if I'd even say more challenging, if just more focused.
Yeah, more specified. The honors classes were always more specified. I remember that specifically.
It was pretty much the same amount of work. Like the
Really?
papers. The papers would have to be longer. Instead of 3 to 5 pagers, you had to write stuff that was at least 5 pages. But I again, my father's a writer.
Yeah.
I've writing the essays was never, and you also had to do your thesis, which was that was huge.
What did you do?
I did a whole dissertation basically on why, when you create a piece of music was what I was using in this case, but basically a piece of art, it has ramifications that in this case are musical, social, and cultural. And I used Max Roach specifically as my example for why that's true.
Huh.
And it was essentially a very long thesis, like 80 to 100 pages, something like that.
Wow.
It included
that's
transcriptions and details of his life. And I did a performance. It was actually my junior recital I used as my junior recital, was a live performance of some of his materials, some stuff I had written, and things that I hoped would make the point that I was making about how there are these, whether you mean it or not, anything you add to the canon has these ramifications inherently.
So
you may not remember this, but I multi-tracked that recital. That was the first multi-track thing that I ever recorded. Was that
Really?
recital? Yeah.
That's super cool.
No, I wish, if you got a copy of it, I need it, man.
I think I might actually.
Really?
I might have it on a CD. Yeah.
I had it on a CD and I put it on my computer, so I don't have the CD anymore. Now the computer, I lost both. The computer won't come on, and I lost the hard drive that it's on when I took it to a gig once to record that gig and left it there. And it's like,
that's a shame.
So if you do actually have it, I would love to hear it. If
I have
you
a
don't,
stack.
I still have all the written material. I actually gave it to all my musicians as if they were accepting like a case for the FBI. So I wrote, like, for Dexter's, I found his, and it says Agent Gilmore on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Or, Agent Bowman for Ian Bowman's, or I
That's
have all of
awesome.
those individually in these little folders. So
Yeah,
I have the music for it.
I remember I was given kind of at a certain point I got given kind of some free reign, and I did a lot of the recital recordings, and it was basically like, if it's someone that you know, and they're like not worried about it, and they didn't, because I don't think you paid for a recording of it was part of it.
I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't pay for a recording, and I knew you, so basically it was like, you have to be there for the show anyway because someone has to open the theater. So if you want to do more than that, you have free reign. So it was like I was basically just given access to say, as long as there's not another gig and there's nothing wrong with it. And so I was like, I'm going to try to multi-track this because I can.
Dude,
and I remember talking to you.
I do remember having that recording.
Yeah, I remember asking you about it, and I was like, hey, man, it's like, I know this might be kind of weird, and I've never done it before, but since you didn't pay for a recording, would you want to, like I can come in and, like, really try to multi-track this whole thing? And you're like, yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be
because
great.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know if it's something that I even want or whatever, but, like, I'd love to have the recollection for it, and I just didn't want to pay for the stereo recording or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool, this is perfect.
You know the way it is when you're a senior in college.
Yeah.
You don't have that. It was 120.
Yeah, it was like $125 or $175.
Like I mean, I just don't.
I did.
Why?
I did it for my junior recital. Yeah, I only
did?
did the one recital junior year, and I did it because I wanted, because some of it was original material of mine, and so I was like, because mine was just, I didn't really have to, or maybe I did, but whatever. My junior recital was fun. It was just, we had like
my junior
costumes
recital was so much more fun
Yeah.
than my senior recital. Senior recital was like, I'm trying to get out of here.
Yeah.
Here are some like jazz standards and a couple originals that I threw together in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Not even the types of originals that I'm like, oh, I really wish I had a recording of that.
Yeah,
Like, for real. Things that I just was like, okay, here's one contrafact and one absolute original that's simple. Like, let's move forward.
Yeah, you had to always do a contrafact. I forgot about that. It was like required.
I think it
had
was
to be
in your senior
Yeah,
recital,
you had to
or
do one contrafact
Yeah, I
had to
had
be
to do
part
a
of it,
contrafact.
and it was
I
a
remember
personal. It was one that you wrote specifically. It wasn't like you could go pick like whatever, like not Ole. I mean, I guess Oleo technically is one, but it's a rhythm changes. But
yeah, but you couldn't choose something that was
couldn't.
pre-existing. Like it couldn't be a blues or a rhythm.
Yeah, you had to like
And-
write your own.
Wait, can you explain contrafact?
Yeah, for those who
yeah.
may not know what a contrafact is, a very simple concept of just taking a song's chord changes, removing that song's melody, and writing your own melody over the existing chord changes. So you essentially just, if you really like the chord changes of a song, just take their melody out, write your own melody. That's all a contrafact is.
And a famous example for ornithology and How High the Moon are
yeah.
old school famous
That's-
ones. That's like a famous for jazz people. Everyone's like, oh,
absolutely.
Yeah, but
Well,
there's many others.
So I mean, Red Clay and Sonny is one of those that goes
Yeah,
across.
you're right.
know,
Yeah,
I mean, where Freddie Hubbard even plays the melody of Sonny in
Sure.
his solo on the, standard version of Red Clay, the track 1, side 1 of Red Clay, the album.
Yeah.
You even hear him play the melody of Sonny for a moment in his
That's
solo.
cool.
Like, yeah, but of course, Sonny is one of those where that chord progression is so standard that it's been used multiple times. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
That's cool. So actually, in regards to writing, do you have a lot of contribution to the Naughty Professor canon? In terms of writing credits or just even personally, sometimes it's like you might not be credited per se, but you're like, no, well, I did make this.
Well, there's a base rate of credit that everybody in Naughty Professor gets because of what we were talking about earlier, where
cool.
It's from the moment it becomes a Naughty Professor song and we're playing it, it's gotten a certain degree of treatment where, so John Colbert would be the one to actually know this.
Sure,
I'm
he's
almost
the publisher
positive
guy.
that this is correct.
Okay.
But there's 6 of us in the band, so the
Yeah.
most you can have is 75% of a song, because everybody else gets 5% inherently, which
I
adds
gotcha.
up to 5 times 5 is 25.
Yeah, of course.
So of the songs that I have that amount of, there's probably like only a few, maybe 3 to a half a dozen or something like that of the, I don't know,
It's
40 to 50 original songs in our recorded lexicon.
Yeah.
And then there's a host of songs where you get like additional credit, like I'll get an extra, call it 3% to, or even 15% or whatever extra on top of my 5 for something you added to a song that may be hit driven, or maybe, well, what about if we change that chord there? Like,
sure, you contributed to the shape of the song, the eventual product,
and
so to speak.
That's a really good way to say that, a shape of the song, because a lot of times when you're a drummer, the stuff that you're contributing, not always, but a lot of times, isn't traditionally copyrightable. Now, Naughty's really cool about all that because we all respect each other.
That's
a lot.
great.
That's kind of a different thing. But also, there's something that works in drummers' favor a lot, where birth of the idea, they call it.
Okay.
If you're involved in the birth of the idea. If I was playing a beat, in fact, this even happened, where I was just playing a beat alone, and then Bowman started playing a melody over it that became the bass line, and then Bowman wrote a different melody to it, and it starts becoming a whole thing. Man, I can't even remember the name of that tune right now. We don't ever play that one live anymore. Elbow Soul, that's the name of that song.
Is that from Out on a Limb?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, because I was just reviewing that one earlier.
It would have to be.
I remember that one had a big impact on me. Yeah.
Dude, that was a really fun record to make and write and record.
Yeah.
And that was definitely in the days where it was a lot more nebulous who was writing what. It was
I think so.
A lot of those and Brainstorm was on that record too, which came more from us just like grooving and coming up with some stuff together.
Elephant Hunt was really impactful.
Elephant Hunt is great. That's one that Bill did basically write and bring in, and then we affected. That John did a lot of the horn writing on that one, and it did change a fair amount, and he ended up writing an extension to basically it was an extension, not a reharm. It is like an extension on the form that was really cool, that I thought added a lot to the song. But that's exactly, if I say would have written something like that, that's the type of thing that you get extra points for. And so to that regard, I mean, I think any of us probably have extra points on a solid like half the material.
Oh, I figured so. I love that you guys have a base rate. That's the sign of a real collective or band that is everyone's contributing in some way.
Yeah,
we're pretty good in Crooked Vines about giving people where their credit is due, for sure. But there have been times like especially some of the recent material where it's like really Dane and John didn't actually help to write any of the material, so it's like it's still like that's. And it is hard as a drummer and a bass player, if somebody brings in chord changes, a melody, and lyrics, it's kind of, and they telling you, well, here it is. It's kind of like, okay, and then you kind of tell them what to do. It's a little bit like, well, how did they write it? But it's tough because it's a shitty legal system. Like, it's like, but you're still part of it.
I like the idea of the base minimum, like in the way you called it, the Naughty Professor treatment. That is definitely something that is intriguing to me, to see that if it's a song that Naughty Professor is going to release, that you all get a piece of it because of that original arrangement or original release of it is like, it is still inherent to you as a player and your take on how, like, even if they came in with a drum part, it's kind of still like you're the first person that's going to iterate that on the record, if you will.
I'm the first one who's going to throw it in the trash and come up with my own.
Yeah, exactly. But that concept also works, though.
No, but how you refine it is important, and that's a huge thing. I'm actually just working on a solo project of someone we all know, Calvin Moore and Martin, who he had these original tunes that have a series of rhythm tracks in them. And when we got together to work it out, the part that I had worked out is playing like on the on the shell of the floor tom and the rim of the snare drum, and doing kind of some of these clicky things to imitate the rhythm track that he was playing, while still playing the honestly quite basic kick snare pattern that he had also written. Not quite basic, but and he immediately was like, "Oh man, that sounds great! Like I don't even have to keep my rhythm tracks in there. It feels so natural. It sounds great." And now, meanwhile, here I'm just talking to my fiance about like, man, Calvin does a great job of writing stuff that's unique to him. So like, I gotta shed the rhythms. You know, it's not like I can just play a standard rhythm that's like, oh, I already worked that out because that's something that has a name and is, you know, something that I've already worked out as part of.
It's the Purdy Shuffle.
Yeah, or Purdy Shuffle or a Wawanko or whatever it may be. Like, no, it's not that. It may be close, but no, it's unique to him. So I got to go in and like actually work out these patterns. And in that rehearsal, we recorded some stuff, and I went, you know, recording through the song. You would try it a couple different ways, and you're like, damn it. It does really make a difference. It grooves better when I play what he wrote instead of just the standard groove. So I guess I have to get in the woodshed and actually learn those parts now, you know. But that's great. And Naughty has a lot of stuff like that is unique to them, where you really have to. I mean, you got to get right in where it is, and if you're choosing not to play what the line is, then it has to be intentional, and it's got to be, you know, like
well, you guys are very specific the arrangements are very rhythmically specific, right? There's
Absolutely.
A lot, I mean, things fit, they're very puzzle piece like with people who aren't familiar. You should go listen to Naughty Professor. They're an incredible band. Obviously we've been talking about them this whole time, so but yes, things are what are some groups that Rubble Buck? What are some
Rubble Bucket would be a good one compared to Naughty Professor.
And like Snarky
Puppy.
Knee Body, Snarky Puppy.
Snarky Puppy would be a bigger one that maybe people would recognize more.
Did you guys ever play with Snarky Puppy? I remember them coming. Yeah, I thought you guys opened for them one time.
We did.
Remember that was like before they like really blew up.
It's been an amazing process for them, because I thought they really blew up before they really blew up.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
I agree. After
I
Tell
thought
Your
they
Friends.
had reached a pinnacle that our like kind of left of center instrumental jazz influenced
The fusion rock jazz.
Yeah, exactly. That I thought was the highest pinnacle you could reach, and then they shattered that.
Yeah.
And that was
Dude,
incredible.
That album with the orchestra.
Yeah.
Silva.
Oh, with Metropole.
Yeah, Metropole Orchestra.
Yeah, exactly.
Do they have another one with an orchestra?
No. I thought you were saying the name of the orchestra was Silva. And
No. Silva's the album with Metropole Orchestra. Yeah.
There's actually a great this record that is also with Metropole Orchestra, similar thing where it's a dude's, I believe, quartet, maybe trio, who is this dude Rainier Bass, REINIER, I think it is, but his last name is definitely BAAS.
Cool.
His record with Metropole Orchestra, it's called Smash Hits. Really fantastic.
Okay, cool.
Stuff that I really, really enjoyed listening to. If you're into stuff like that, it kind of melds big band with a modern style. Great dynamic and orchestrative stuff while playing like really, really nice, tasteful stuff as well. I also like Rainier Bass a lot. I think he's a great modern cat right now.
Okay.
Who I like a lot. But that record is a great starting place, and the way that he uses the orchestra is just, oh man, it makes you want to write your stuff for orchestra. You know,
yeah.
I mean,
do you find yourself listening to like things in the jazz pantheon? Is that kind of where you or jazz fusion? Like basically, a lot of the music that you play, do you also gravitate towards that as something that you listen to a lot?
Yes and no. I think I definitely have a passion for it, and a lot of times I have what I call a jazz playlist, and then what I call a jazz adjacent playlist.
Okay.
That I all the time just put on for casual listening when who am I kidding? I don't casually listen that often, especially right now because busy season and Jazz Fest is coming up, and I'm just learning tunes pretty much constantly for different freelance gigs and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
But I definitely have that. And when I actively listen, I absolutely love putting on some of these bands that are newer to me, such as Rainier Bass, who I've newer to me in the last few years, such as Mouse on the Keys is one that my fiance Alex turned me on to. It's really cool. Japanese cats that do some really interesting stuff. If I remember correctly, it's 2 keyboard players and a drummer. They have some really interesting stuff as well. Or be it Kneebody or Chan or any of these guys who are certainly, jazz adjacent. I would say for my own personal listening, I listen to a tremendous amount of world music and folk music from a variety of places. And sometimes that will cross over with modern interpretations of either folk music or cats who I just come to find because, say, I was researching, my family is Lebanese, so I tried to keep at least some degree of a pulse on Lebanese music, not just, super famous cats like Fairuz, but also a modern jazz cat like Tariq Yamani, and coming across some of these cats who you're like, man, this is, some really interesting stuff. And I went on during COVID, actually, I was kind of trying to go on a little bit of, let me just expand where and how I listen to music, and came across some artists that just really blew my mind. And a lot of times the stuff that I particularly gravitate towards will be something that intersects with what we refer to as jazz or BAM, or however you choose to refer to it. BAM being Black American music. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And okay, cool.
Absolutely. And I'm not making a judgment on, I just want to be clear that by me using the term jazz, I'm not trying to make a judgment on what it should or should not be called.
Oh, sure.
Gotcha. But another cat that I have really fallen in love with is a guy named Salah Ragab, Salah is his first name, Ragab is his last name. He's an Egyptian percussionist who runs a big band, kind of, in very layman's terms, you could think of him as the Tito Puente of Egypt, kind of.
Wow.
Very
cool.
percussive music. Definitely blends Western jazz and harmonic traditions with, Egyptian, and I think an extension thereof, harmonic and melodic traditions, and certainly rhythmic traditions. It's some really interesting stuff. He's got a record called Ramadan in Space Time that I heard for the first time. Was like, whoa, this is sick, dude. And he's got collaborations with Sun Ra and all types of guys who I was really interested in.
So he's an older guy.
And his heyday, I suppose, would have been about the 70s. Or,
what a great period of time for music.
And
but today's now, I mean, honestly, there's no bad period of time, but it's it's funny what you gravitate towards.
Yeah, and just when you, but no, I do find myself listening to a tremendous amount of just trying to branch out,
So other cultures, especially as you said, Lebanese. So staying in touch with perhaps your family roots, that's important to you. And
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Through as many aspects of the heritage as I can. And, I heard, so myself and my fiance Alex went to a career to Mardi Gras for Mardi Gras this year, which is a Cajun Mardi Gras, very rural, very, 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 very different experience than what we have in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And the Capitan, the man who was running the whole thing, his name was Jordan Thibodeau. He's a musician in Cajun country near Eunice is where he lives. And he said something that really resonated with me, where he said, if you don't wake up and choose to live your culture every day, then you are letting it die. And I think that's exceptionally true for smaller cultural areas like Cajun country and things like that.
Sure,
it's certainly like if I don't, and you can interpret that however you want, and how you choose to live your culture is of course up to your own interpretation, but it is absolutely very important to me to maintain that, and it's been a part of my life my entire life. I grew up playing backgammon and eating wara arish, and my family is Syrian Orthodox, even though I'm not religious. Kind of any cultural aspect that you would want to pursue, we are culturally, I would say, Levantine more than Lebanese, specifically because my city, my grandmother has a family tree that literally goes back to 707 AD. No joke. I'm serious.
Wow.
And it has where we lived at different parts in that time,
Holy
different
shit.
family names, all types of stuff. And it is,
And you've been and this has been preserved, the knowledge of it, the record.
She has it and
wow.
adds to it as necessary, where different family
That's incredible.
You know, family immigrates and all types of stuff happen, but especially in that time period, very early in the family tree that she has there, there's nomadic lifestyles. You know, where we did technically immigrate from Lebanon, but we have Syrian blood. We have Canaanite blood. You know what I mean? Palestinian. And that, however, you kind of would define these terms at different times because you know that with nationality, with ethnicity, with all a tremendous variety of things, names change and countries are developed through a line in the sand, as we know. Yeah. But the point being, I call it Levantine because that's the more inclusive entire region that I personally associate.
And you've been there too, I'm sure. I
have,
imagine. Yeah, because you're a traveler. We've talked.
I am a traveler. It has been difficult for me to get back to Lebanon recently, or even in the last 20 years, for a variety of reasons. Going to college, touring, and even being, I haven't been anywhere realistically close enough to go in quite a long time, and then it's a bummer. I'd love to see some of my family there and to go back, and there have been a variety of other factors at play there where Syrian war has taken a massive toll on the Lebanese population.
Geopolitical factors would be probably prevent you in a way or a barrier, perhaps.
At least give me some thoughts. I know I would be safe, especially with my family, and knowing that they have the resources that they do and have the information that they do, and I don't have a concern about that. It's also just about picking a time to go when my family can respectfully give me the attention that I would know that they would want to give me. And can take me places that they know that I would want to go as well, without it being compromising to put an American in that position. And I have been the dumb American in that position before, you know, and they have had to tell me, you don't do that here, you know, like, whoa, chill out, dude.
Yeah, like what?
You know, well, when I was the first time I went when I was quite young, I guess I'd say like 10. I mean, I just saw a dude, and I guess he doesn't know this. He didn't know this, but he was like walking down the street in a what do they call Olympic jersey, like United States Olympic jersey. And in all likelihood, he got it because he liked the colors or whatever, and didn't, you know, whatever the case may be. And I rolled down the window and like pumped my fist out the window like USA, 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 and you know, somebody pulled me directly back in the car. We were approaching a checkpoint and everything, and it was, you know, just like, hey, I get it, but don't do that here, you know, or just even areas you're not supposed to go to, things that I wouldn't necessarily know, and am prone to just get carried away in how I travel and how I wander. Yeah. And
like you're walking into a place and you don't realize how dangerous it might be for you.
Precisely. For me, for an American specifically, or any number of,
or maybe even how offensive it could be to someone that's like, you should, this isn't a place for you.
But maybe it would be a place for me at a different time. It depends on,
or if you had the right, and if you're with the right liaison, or you have the right idea or concept in mind of what you're trying to get from that place.
Exactly. I mean, the most obvious or clear one being just trying to wander into a mosque because of its architectural beauty, being like, excuse me, sir, are you Muslim? And it being like, oh, no, I'm not. Oh, well then I'm sorry, but only, you know, believers are allowed in. Please feel free to enjoy the beauty.
You're an infidel, man. Get the fuck out.
However, you would want to approach that situation, which that's totally happened. Yeah. You know, that's another one where you're just like culturally like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Yeah. You know, and once, and I don't know that that's something, that might have been specific to that branch of Islam. I have no idea. That's the point. I don't know, and you can stumble into situations where.
Sure. Well, it's like the thing you think about in European and U.S. culture is that like there's a lot of beautiful churches, and a lot of people go to places just to look at those churches. Like the Sistine Chapel, people travel to see that, and it's like in the Islam religion, you're not allowed to even go into that place. If it was you know, if it wasn't a house of Christianity or whatever you want to call it, or however you want to look at that, you know, they host tour groups of plenty of people that are completely secular. So, you know, it's just a little different, and it's not something that you would necessarily think of because we're not as surrounded by Islam in the U.S. or even in Europe, really. prior to the U.S.
I think there's something interesting too, because that applies. Now I've done some traveling in my life, not as much as you, I believe, but various places. I've been to Europe. I've been to Puerto Rico, which is kind of part of the United States, but not.
Territory,
it's a territory, but it's they have their own culture and everything. But even going there with friends, that's just one example. But I think anywhere people come to the United States, it's like anywhere you go, there's always something. Like some people, depending on.
States too,
I was gonna say, depending on the color of your skin, there are some
New
towns
Orleans.
you can, New Orleans, wherever, exactly, It's
Keep my head on a swivel on Bourbon Street gig.
for
Honestly.
sure.
I'm not,
For sure, yeah. Of course, that's anywhere, any city.
Yeah.
New York City, it doesn't have to be the color of your skin. You're just like that. That's just like people being
Certainly,
crime,
the color of your skin matters, but no,
depending
you're
on where you're
absolutely
going,
right. Yeah.
or who you are, how you talk.
How-
Even here, we all speak the same English language, but if your dialect is different, you just being a white person in somewhere, that's like, they
assumed
might.
you're stupid
Yeah.
or dangerous or any number of things, depending on the language you use, the tone of voice, any number of things.
Sure. So my point is that anywhere in the world, we're still culturally divided.
Absolutely.
And that I think it's interesting that there is a bit of not privilege perhaps, but an American sensibility of just like, well, why can't? Oh, let me go.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I totally am Mr. Carefree Traveler.
I'm not accusing you per se, but it's like
I totally do that.
Just like you're
Suffer
good.
from that.
Yeah, it's just like I wouldn't. Oh yeah, I'll go in this mosque.
No, and because
it's just to admire and to see something that's beautiful that you want to
I understand,
partake in that beauty a little bit.
but I
And
think
it's not coming from a place of negativity or
No. It's
so
like
it's
it's
really more
blissful
like I'm
ignorance almost.
intrigued by this and I want to educate myself on it. And in the U.S. we have so much access to be able to do
It
that.
speaks to the freedom of the United States.
yeah.
It speaks to the freedom that we enjoy that I think people take for granted. I'm trying to make a point that's not against you. It's about when people take freedom for granted. Because I do think there's this thing about Americans just being like, well, America sucks these days. And it's just like, nah, we're still ingrained with this like amazing spirit of freedom that other cultures do not fucking have. Like, look at women in the Middle East and not being able to take off a fucking hijab or, their dress.
Not all over the Middle East.
Not over the Middle
yeah,
East.
Yeah. There are situations,
of course.
and there are also customary purposes, of course, why women choose to wear that. That's fair. That's fair. But absolutely.
But places where they're not, there's
can't open a bank account under their own name without, or any number of things that are very practical aspects of daily life in the United States.
Sure.
That are at the very least a difficult to scale mountain in other places.
Yeah.
For any number of reasons or any number of people.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting thing to see the way people culturally address Americans, for lack of a better term. That not just Westerners, but specifically Americans. There is a certain cachet, for lack of a better term, to being American that is felt, especially when you're in a place where maybe Americans don't typically go. In times that I've been in rural China, for example, or in Ethiopia, especially rural Ethiopia, people are fascinated, not just by you being a Westerner or being, but specifically being American. In both of those places, it was, I'd have to use the word common for people to like, oh, French, English, what are you? And I would tell them American. Just because I was an American, they would want to take a picture with me. Like, no joke.
Yeah, sure.
I'm serious.
Well, you're an anomaly.
It blew my mind. You know what I mean? Where you're just like, how is there this cachet to being American when, and
there's a bit of a mystique that comes up with being an American in a lot of the rural places, I think, especially in China and in places like more rural foreign countries, more rural areas especially. There's like a bit of like a fantasy land of that. I guess I would call it like the 1960 America of like it's the land of milk and honey. It's the land of and there's still a bit of that idea, I think, that comes along for a lot of people with saying that you're American.
Yeah, absolutely.
A dominant, influential power of the world.
Yeah, especially in places where people can have a lot of fond memories, quite honestly. Well, maybe not especially. There are definitely some very unfond memories from America, but in areas, where American pop culture is so dominant that people can easily, if they choose to, think about the pop music icons and movies and things that they can remember America very, very, very fondly in a way that other countries who have done heinous things like we have maybe don't have a dominant cultural aspect that travels globally. Where, I mean, Germany has done far more to repair their reputation as a country in the last, whatever it is, 80 years since the end of World War II than America has done to repair its reputation over the course of, call it 300 years or however you wanted to define this. But we have had certainly more time to rectify more and have done less.
Yeah, for sure.
Yet I feel that Germany is still associated with Nazism in a stronger degree internationally, and to a lot of people in rural areas around the country than America is with our heinous acts that have both been more recent and
ongoing
and less ongoing and less recent. Like,
hey,
you know,
it's good branding. All right, America's we're just PR. We got some good PR people. All right.
I do think there's something to be said for the idea that people
it's a narrative
are almost compartmentalizing America in this pop culture society. It's brought me so much joy. I remember, and
the Beatles. Well, that's England, but like I'm sorry, but that's like a Western
Michael
culture.
Jackson,
Michael Jackson. Sorry, I was just saying Michael Jackson. Star Wars
around the world.
Things.
Same with Madonna or Marilyn Monroe.
Michael Jackson's scandal. They don't know shit about it. You know what I mean? They're like Billie Jean, baby, like Michael Jackson. Like Michael Jackson, he's got the dance moves. He does you know what I mean? Like people love Michael Jackson around the world.
That's
it's
true.
amazing. It is, or you get out on a basketball court and immediately every kid on there is Michael Jordan.
Yeah, okay.
People love American, just society, and you can't tell me that doesn't have something to do with our public perception and why somebody like me would just go over and then I'd be in certain areas, especially the rural areas, where people are like movie star, right? You're a movie star or a musician or something. How else would you be here? Type of situation. Because I was going to some of these places where I met a guy in the airport on the way to Beijing who was asking what we were doing. We're playing some Blue Note shows with Naughty Professor in these two different cities, and then I'm actually staying and I'm going to this national park in a Tibetan prefecture in Sichuan province called Zhijiaogao, and this dude was like, I've lived in China my whole life and I've always wanted to go there. Like, that's amazing. So these people who would see me, relatively young man, doing something like this, to them, this is the trip of a lifetime. So an American doing this, they're like, you must be rich, you must be famous, you must be like, they kept coming up to me like movie star, music, right? And I would be like, well,
kinda.
Technically, I'm a professional musician, but no, Jesus Christ, am I not at all what you mean by I'm spending more than I made on this whole tour to be in China to just stay in China for, and I don't know if that's actually true, but you know what I mean? Like, no, this is not some
it was maybe not in the red, but you went in the black just because you was like, I want to see that, I want to experience this and have this experience.
You're not John Cena filming Fast and Furious, whatever,
But I make that a habit, man. Anywhere we go international, it's like, how can I stay and
make this more,
the most expensive part of your trip, a lot of times, and especially depending on where in the world you might be, is the flight itself. So if the flight's being covered by either Naughty Professor or the festival we're playing at or whatever, it's like, why would I
seize that opportunity.
Well, you're going to Alaska, James.
That's exactly what I'm going to be in Alaska this summer. So.
Awesome. What part? And what are you doing?
Anchorage is the home base, but I'm going with a band that has formerly the Dirty Hands. They are under a new name now, Debonair Dirtbags, and they're going to go up there. They're all from there, so I think it's like 16 or 18 shows that we'll do over the course of a month.
Awesome.
So and that's what. And luckily, I don't have to worry as much about staying there because I'm trying to figure out if I can maybe not play all the shows because being there for 30 days is a little too long for me.
Oh, really?
That's definitely the same thing that we've done in other. We've never done it specifically, but seeing how there's ways to expand on where we're going and utilize it as a way.
It's a privilege.
So have a vacation or utilize that piece of it to see some of that culture, or some of that place that you weren't able to maybe go otherwise outside of that. And just like you said, having that flight covered. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. It's absolutely a
You have to
privilege. It's
maximize the
also a
opportunity.
decision you make with yourself. You're taking,
Yeah.
you know, like when I went to China, that was one of the busiest times in New Orleans. I'd missed Halloween weekend here. I missed everything that led up to it. It was definitely, I understood the decision I was making.
Give and take.
that
Give
I-
and take.
Yeah,
but
but
it
I
well
would
worth
make
it.
that decision
Yeah,
again.
of course,
in
I would
this
too.
case,
Yeah.
you know, like that was. I mean, a beautiful. You don't remember the money you would have made as much as you remember the experiences you did have.
As we
of
talked about
course,
earlier,
you know.
money's just, you can just take it. Just ask rich people for it.
If
All right, just
I was-
send out an email or two, and it'll cover
or
it.
100.
Yeah, or
whatever.
100, whatever it takes.
And no, yeah, totally, totally. And it definitely, if money was the goal, I either wouldn't be in this profession or I wouldn't be doing it this way.
Sure.
You know,
Obviously, I
but
think
yeah.
a lot of people need. Yeah, we're not here to
Yeah.
to make the money.
Yeah.
I know that we were talking about wrapping up around noon. It's a little past. Can you go? Can we a couple last
Yeah,
question
yeah,
or two?
A few minutes, yeah.
A few more minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
it's 12:14. So is
Cool.
that cool? Okay, we got okay. Specifically in conjunction, you had told me before that like the China trip tour that you
Yep.
helped organize and do things for the band, for the Naughty Professor. Do you guys all kind of share the load a bit? What kind of responsibilities do you have for the band that contribute? How does that
Yeah.
work now that you were telling me that you don't have management currently
Yeah.
in the way that you had before?
So it's working differently now than it has in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I think at one point I thought it was really functional and great to do. We were doing something where basically everybody kind of it was like 2-person teams basically. So John and Nick would be social media, and Bill and I were logistics and financial and stuff like that. And so you essentially had someone who was the head of it and somebody who was a helper who could both double check them to make sure nothing
Smart as
slipped through
hell.
the cracks, and also could split the workload straight up.
Yeah,
You know,
you have
like,
to. It's
so
a
when
lot
we went
of
to
work.
China, there was a lot of stuff that was predetermined for us. You know, we knew we didn't have to book our own hotels or anything like that. That was all done through the Blue Note, if I remember correctly. But we had to get visas, and visas is an issue that is extremely difficult. We had to organize travel between the cities. There was certain stuff that was, you know,
Complicated.
and you got to figure out. And
International logistics.
Bill and I
Scary.
mostly did that.
You get so fucked.
The visas were, I mean, scared me to death because you have to mail, or
You told me that. Yeah.
you have to mail your passport to an agency in Houston in our case, because it was our regional agency, in order to get clear. And just like,
I can't imagine putting
Yeah,
a passport in the mail.
we were
That
talking
seems
about
insane.
things
Yeah.
that make you feel like an American and like
Yeah.
American society and stuff. There's something hardwired in your brain
Yeah, but-
about a passport as an
Yeah.
American, like your social security card, your passport. There are these things that are like, no, you don't let anyone
Yeah.
touch that. You know where that
Especially
is
not the
at
USPS.
all
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so to have to mail off your passport really freaked me out. But we were in a great position where a friend's band had been to China recently, and his wife helped me with some of the visa application stuff, with which actually she kind of looked at it and was like, hey, you did a great job. I think you're definitely going to get accepted and you're not missing anything. Just kind of like, great. Wow,
Yeah.
that's what I was hoping.
That's
But no, the way that we organize a lot of that has traditionally been in these pairs for a variety of different things, and whether it be day of show stuff. We used to have a manager who did a lot of this type of stuff. COVID definitely took a toll on us, where we had previously had two managers actually, and a domestic booking agent and an international booking
Wow,
agent.
That's pretty awesome
And
to have that team.
and we were doing a lot, but also the decision still came down to essentially a 6-person vote, which definitely makes things difficult. Trying to get 6 people to agree on anything, pretty ridiculous. And so we had a continuous operating agreement that we would kind of tweak every year or two, or however we felt it needed to be. And we kind of operated that way for a while. this is going to sound like I'm just bitching, but there is a certain degree of, I do think we were in a really good place before COVID with, large national tours opening up for the types of bands that we wanted to be opening up for.
Yeah, you're going on
to be associated
Tank
with.
of the Bangers, right?
And we were doing, we were the background band for Big Frida on that
that's
tour.
Right.
And
that's it, yes. And,
all types of
you've
stuff.
done, I was going to ask about this, but like Charlie Tuna and like these other, and the album Identity had all these different people
and Marcus
involved.
King and all types of people who and doing extensive national touring where we felt confident in certain cities that we were going to hit certain bars of both the money we were able to make and the people who were going to be able to come out, and we felt confident in that degree.
So it seemed
going international. You
guys played a couple jazz fests. Was there maybe one in Europe that you played a jazz fest for?
A couple.
That's what some pretty large name things. You're looking at,
and even COVID, we were supposed to play Umbria Jazz Fest, which is a huge one for us, and it got canceled. It was that 2020 year in July that ended up getting canceled.
So it seems like the ascension, like all the hard work, you were kind of finally hitting the stride that you were like, this is making me feel almost the validation. Not that you didn't have it before, but like, hey, we're hitting it.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a lot of that.
It was taken away.
And COVID did have a strong impact on that, and people adjusted their lives accordingly, which makes all the sense in the world. And there's no resentment about that. People like myself soon getting married and adjusting their lives in different ways, taking different gigs, potentially moving cities, stuff like that. And we did management. I think this was mutual in us understanding that we were changing how we wanted to do things. We sold the van, we sold the trailer. We decided we were only going to take gigs that we could fly to with backline and that paid a certain amount that we weren't going to do the grind style touring. Where you're playing these Live Nation venues for a very small guarantee and then having
and you've done it for
we've been doing that for a long time. Almost
7,
a decade. Yeah. What felt like a decade, certainly. And which James would know.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm very in tune
What
with those
feels
past
like a
10 years. What
decade.
feels like a decade.
He's good with math.
And so things did change, and I think that viewed a different way, COVID gave musicians a platform that we never really had before. There was an attention placed on musicians in a way that we hadn't had before, so musicians had a power that we had never really felt before. And Naughty Professor, again, viewing this kind of a different way, has taken advantage of that dynamic to define the way in which we want to return to the active music community. And we're working on a new record with a bunch of features, kind of a follow-up to Identity.
Okay, cool.
We're working with a producer for the first time, which we had never done, which I love. Oh my God.
Who's the producer on this? Can you say?
Yeah, Andrew Campanelli from the Revivalists. Actually,
fantastic.
Is producing
awesome.
this, and Mac Major has been a huge part of engineering.
Dude,
it
he's
and being
hitting
a
it.
voice.
He's
Mac
hitting it
is
these days.
amazing.
He's all
Both
over.
those guys are so great to have, and I love my relationship with it because I go in, record drums, and leave, and I don't have to deal with the existential minutia of choosing your parts and, well, when you edit this is my best moment or take or whatever, but it's not the best for the whole song, and all this stuff that like trips you up about recording.
The overthinking, part ego, part like you just managerial, like you can get to walk away. Oh, that's nice.
It's great.
That's fucking
It's
awesome.
great.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. I'm a huge fan. So
you recommend it?
Yeah, highly. Yes, I'm a big fan.
Do you guys have is this financed outside of the band, or is this like band fund, personal finance? Like, how do you guys
band fund? This is all band fund. Part of why it's taken us a while, and we are fortunate to have streaming numbers that are not irrelevant.
Sure,
and
no, of
that
course,
if we,
yeah.
if we take enough time, we know we can build a band fund through streaming.
That's awesome.
And be able to cover studio dates, and Andrew is being a total homie about the amount that he wants, paying people in points where we can, meaning by points I just mean it may be on the publisher side or on the composer side, or split between the two, or kind of the nuance of how that's.
It's a great way to do it. Honestly, that's a decent trade-off for people. I wouldn't mind that myself. It's like you never know if something goes, and then that's a great thing to be attached to, as opposed to
and especially
a flat
with some
fee
of these guests we have on the record, Tank from Tank of the Bangers, Marcus King, and some of the others. The thought is that there might be any any number of streaming royalties in addition to synchronization licenses or any number of things that may be streams of revenue that would go to people who have points.
And you've also worked with like David Shaw. I'm sure that the song Stray was a big.
We wrote a song together. Yeah, Stray was I'd say most of the music for that, I guess, like kind of the chord progression.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
wow, that's that's kind of a hit.
Parts were definitely written by horn players, mostly John. I think Ian has some lines in there as well. I don't remember how all of that exactly went down, but no, the vast majority, the birth of the idea was definitely me. I brought the song in.
Sure,
you know
that's
I mean?
amazing.
And Dave, and it's funny because it was a 3-section. It had 3 different harmonic sections, and Dave made it one. He was just like, we're just gonna, like, this is the
I saw you guys had a video
section.
that's with the extra stuff, but he just, it was like, nope, just that's funny.
Yeah, which was a great decision, you know.
Sometimes that discerning, that's the kind of the producer managed, is just like, no, you got, hey guys, you got to cut
this
trim.
is the
No, that's all you need.
Here's the meat of it.
Yeah,
this is all we need. Yeah, exactly.
And it's hard to kill your kill your darlings, isn't that the phrase? You know what I'm talking about, right? The writer phrase. Yeah,
no, it is. I think and hope I'm pretty good about that, honestly.
I try to be
a
too.
lot of times
Sometimes it's
like,
hard.
Man,
it's hard.
this is terrible. You know what I mean? It's just like, throw that out the window, dude. That's not
it's hard to discern, like, no, in my gut, I really feel strongly about this. I want the interlude. I want I want, this is what I want. And then also having that outside voice being like, to help bring it elsewhere that's more commodified or commercialized.
And to refine it
to make it the better thing.
Yeah, and that's part of what having a producer has been so huge for. And I am really excited about this record. There's some stuff on there that we would have never come up with on our own, which is the point.
Yeah.
And some really great features. Nate Worth from Snarky Puppy is on a few of the songs playing percussion. And Hafet as well from here in town. And
I know Sean Martin, you guys did something with him.
On our most recent EP. Instrumental release. That's right. That's right.
Him and Scarrick, too. That must have been a lot of fun to work with those guys.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. And Weedy is the
other one.
Other featured
one of the 3 kings. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. That was the whole point. 3 songs. It's called Good Things. You know what I mean?
That was called 3 Kings.
I think one of the songs is called.
Oh, is that what it is?
Songs is called Kings.
Did I fuck it
up?
up?
Scarrick on it.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh,
Kings,
3 good things. What's it called? Good things.
I think it's called Good Things because good things come in 3s, right? Isn't
that?
A lot of this, I remember the like joke names we have for the songs before they're ever named.
Yeah, right.
So to me, Kings is still Mr. Durkin, and it was written. Nick wrote that one kind of an homage to his high school jazz band director, who was named Mr. Durkin. That we just called it that. So I get all code names before confused. You know what I mean? Like,
well, especially with instrumental tracks, it's easy to forget the whenever you're not saying the name of the song over and over in the song. It's like, what is this one called again?
Yeah. It's like what?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, dude, I know we got about wrap it. Yes, it's time to wrap it up. So thank you so much for coming on, Sam. I really appreciate it. I knew we'd have a lot of fun.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed it. Is there what's coming up for you soon? Like I said, this is going to come out. Well, I mean, we are live on Instagram and YouTube, but this episode will come out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everything on Monday, April 17th. So that's right. Next Monday, what do you got coming up? Jazz Fest time.
Well, this weekend is French Quarter Fest. Got some of my normal gigs and some extra freelance stuff coming up for all of that. And then Jazz Fest is going to be fantastic. We got a bunch of hits with Naughty Professor.
Yeah, I saw that. There's a Maple Leaf show and a Cafe Istanbul.
Late on Friday, Cafe Istanbul kind of wrap-up show Sunday.
Yeah.
Late on Sunday night, which the early show that night is Herlin Riley, who is... I mean, you talk about kings, that guy.
So you're going to be there all night.
Yeah, so I will likely get to that early and check out Herlin for a while. Excuse me, Mr. Riley. Who am I kidding, man? All the respect to that man. Oh, my. New Orleans is such a drummer city, man. It really is. This is such a place where you can be lost in the sauce of truly elite drummers.
Yeah.
And I mean that.
It's crazy,
elite drummers. It is next level what seeing the cats here. And even with that, preamble, Herlin is truly something special. And there are times, I kind of have to, you're like, There's so many great cats, but this is Hurlin
so that's a
City,
big-
and I'm just living
okay.
in it, man. You know,
That's pretty
like,
amazing. That's great.
He's incredible. Hurlin Riley is truly one of my favorites, and listening to him in high school is part of what made me want to move down here. Honestly,
Wow, that's
a big
amazing.
deal. Him with Ahmad Jamal, that Yellow Fellow recording. Oh my God! Live at Montreux, you listen to that Yellow Fellow Ahmad Jamal with Hurlin Riley on drums. That will.
Okay.
That'll make you want to move to New Orleans and become a drummer. Which is exactly
what
it
you did. Yeah.
But no, we have that coming up. Actually, my fiance's birthday is during the second weekend of Jazz Fest.
Nice.
And I'm not sure what we're doing, but I think it's likely that she's going to tell me, just surprise me with whatever you want to do. So that could be really
That's wild.
fun.
My birthday is the second weekend of Jazz Fest
Really?
every year. Yeah, I'm the 30th of April.
Oh, really? Well, that's first weekend.
First weekend.
First
weekend.
Yeah,
That's
first
first
weekend.
weekend.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. First weekend
Yeah.
of Jazz Fest is.
Oh,
is
nice.
the-
Well, happy early birthday. That's coming
Coming up, yeah.
Hey, man.
You definitely caught me there. I did forget that is always the
Wait.
first weekend because
Yeah.
the second weekend is always the first full weekend of May.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wait, are we playing on your birthday? We were playing that.
We were
first
playing the
Saturday.
night before my
The
birthday.
night before. Cool. Well,
That's
we'll
kind of
celebrate.
perfect. So it might become your birthday.
It will
as y'all
it-
play.
I don't
no,
know
we
if it
play
will
7:30,
that night. We
10:30.
play
We
an
play till
earlier
10:30.
slot. We only play till
Okay.
10:30,
Yeah,
but it'll be
39, yeah.
perfect because I'll be able to leave and like have a drink for my birthday then.
Well, we've done that. Yeah, we did that. My birthday was the next day too. We this happens for our band
We've done
sometimes.
it a couple
it's like
times.
Lindsay's birthday at Tipitina's, your birthday.
Depending
yeah.
on when your
Somehow just-
birthday
yeah.
falls, like mine's
Yeah.
the day before Halloween, so a lot of times if that's
Oh, yeah.
If it works out,
a
if it's
Friday
like-
or Saturday,
So,
we're definitely
yeah, we
playing,
did House
you
of
know.
Blues one year on my birthday because it was the Saturday of first Saturday of Jazz Fest and
Yep.
whatnot. So
Yep.
But and so yeah, Naughty's got some shows, so people can keep up with them online.
Yeah.
Space and Harmony, I think, has something coming too. Right? I thought I saw
Not
something.
right now. I think
Oh,
we
really?
just
Okay.
finished a block of stuff. Although Space and Harmony will likely have some more stuff coming up. George does a great job with that. And then I do this Justin Donovan hit. Really, I've been having things on Tuesdays. I've been doing an alternate gig on Tuesdays, so I haven't been doing it on Tuesdays usually. But you can pretty much count on me being there Mondays and Wednesdays, 1:30 to 7:30.
Oh,
It is
cool.
a long gig, and Justin is amazing. He plays a hybrid guitar, so it's 3 bass strings and 3 guitar strings
Yeah.
with a stereo output, so it doesn't get muddy at all. They each go to their
Oh,
own
that's
amp.
amazing.
He also sings.
That's
It's
how does
an
he
incredible thing
That's
to see,
crazy.
and it's a very fun gig where we take a lot of freedom, and it really comes with kind of an improvisatory mentality that is really fun to do. It's a gig on Bourbon Street, but it is not a bourbon gig.
I
You
understand.
know, it's a Bourbon Street drinkery, and that is a really fun gig if you find yourself in New Orleans on a weekday when, say, Jazz Fest isn't
Mm-hmm.
going on between the weekends, or came early for whatever it may be, stay late for whatever it may be. That is a really fun gig to do. And if you're walking the quarter, definitely come by and say hey to
Cool.
us. We're there pretty much all day, 1:30 to 7:30.
Yeah, it's a big Mondays and Wednesdays, right?
For me, yeah,
For
he
you,
does it
okay.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I do all 3 days, you know, when
Sometimes,
I can, or
yeah.
when it,
It's a
when it
lot.
makes sense. Yeah,
That's a lot.
yeah, to do
I know how
those
he
3
does it,
days
yeah,
for
so.
6 hours, you know,
It's a work day. It's a full work day.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and to do them all 3 in a row for 6 hours is a lot. And I have been getting other stuff on Tuesdays that just makes sense to kind of split it up.
man.
But no, it's been great, man. A lot of work right now. It's a good time to be in New Orleans. It's a really fun time. The weather's nice.
Yeah,
the
we've had
gigs
good-
are
yeah.
plentiful. It's been great.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad. And you can and people can follow you. This is Your Brain on Drums.
Yeah, Instagram.
Very funny. Yeah, that's your
at
handle,
This
yeah.
is Your Brain on Drums.
And I think do you have stuff on YouTube as well?
Yeah, I do have some stuff up on YouTube. You know,
did you-
during COVID, I
Yeah.
uploaded a bunch of stuff and then never paid attention to it after that.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
But it's definitely there, and I definitely wholeheartedly believe in it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put it up. You know, there's some like one-man band style of stuff.
Yeah, I remember you take your drumsticks for a walk you were doing.
I was doing that for a while too. That was so fun. I
That
should
was,
get back
yeah,
to that.
that was a really cool little
was so
segment, taking your
fun.
drumsticks out in the world and on tour and travels and
And just walking around New Orleans.
yeah,
and
it's
stuff,
fucking
just
cool,
whatever it may
dude. That
be,
was
that's
great.
Right. I was doing that.
And your little drum instruction videos and transcriptions and stuff
Yeah.
you've done. Yeah.
I had some stuff I wrote on. I play like a tongue drum and some keyboard and some little one-man band stuff as well. That was pretty fun to create. I think I called it Cool Grooves and Beats on Fire because they were with a blue lighting or with a red lighting, and I tried to split
fuck
them
yeah.
in half ideologically, kind of, you know.
Cool. Well, everyone who's listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Yep, Sam Shahin. You can catch him with Naughty Professor and all the groups that he mentioned. James and I were, Crooked Vines are at 3090 on Frenchman Street, Saturday, April 29th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
right?
think so.
If your birthday is the next day, the
Yep.
30th. So it's Saturday, April 29th. It's the first Saturday of Jazz Fest. We're playing 7:30 to 10:30. We are going to rock the fuck out, maybe even with some new material. And because we've been really fortunate, we play original material, at
yeah,
which is pretty
that
fucking.
can be few and far between. Yeah,
It's pretty sweet. We play, we're lucky in that capacity, and we have
Yeah, that's
Lindsay
great.
Smith on vocals. Yeah,
that's
so
great.
all right, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in, and stay crooked. All right, and for the people who are listening still on the live stuff, thank you so much for watching. We're gonna shut the YouTube off, and I'm gonna check actually to see if there are any comments on the Instagram one real quick, because as soon as I exit out, it goes away. So let's see if there were any. Rex just said, "I love the taking your drumsticks on a walk."
Nice, Rex Marshall.
Yep.
My boy.
Yep.
I love Rex. I'm actually hanging out with him tomorrow.
Fuck yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna exit.